Halloween
Forever.
Man, Steve, all this space talk, and particularly, I've got a moon-related movie over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like dang old spookies on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got me really obsessed with the moon nowadays. Like that's my new passion. Can't stop watching videos and reading about the moon. You ever have that happen?
Sure, yeah. You know, you get real pumped on the moon. You go watch that movie Moonfall. You get real into the moon for a time. It happens.
Yeah, you talk about the. I talk like this, like the Moonanites. I just adopt this inflection in my everyday life. Now, I'm just real into the moon these days. Listen, it's probably just a phase.
Hey-o.
Welcome, boys and girls, to a fucking Showdown episode of Halloween's Forever. I'm Brian.
And I'm Steve.
Oh boy, guys, do we have a little audible for you? An audible. Because it's a podcast. We are kicking off the beautiful month of April.
May.
With our show. May. Just fucking up my months, boys and ghouls. Kicking off the month of May with a son of a bitchin' Showdown episode. However, when I said audible, and I don't mean audible like you're listening to, I mean audible like in the sense of like a football boy will call an audible and change the play. We had to do that on account of our guest, Brian from the Drink a Beer Play Game podcast, had some unexpected personal things pop up. He had to postpone being on the old podcast last minute, unfortunately. But got to take care of some stuff, so we get it. So for that reason, weren't able to find another guest on short notice. So we're going to do something we've had to do, I think, one other time in the past, which is Steve and I go for kind of our own little version of a tag team showdown here. And what that means is we're kind of not we have our tag team member that we tag in to talk about a movie. We each got two old movies that are like their proverbial tag team partners, the movies themselves. So we each have two movies to talk about. So we kind of flesh this out a little bit more and make things a little bit more interesting. And then, of course, because we're not going to vote, because God knows we're both going to vote for ourselves, what we'll do is throw it out on the old social medias for our friends and listeners to vote on, and they will vote on basically each of our individual pair of movies and say, hey, what do you think is the better tag team here? Reminder, like I had mentioned already, we're doing space movies for the beautiful month of May, and we picked some kind of off the beaten path ones, which I'm pretty excited about. And then I actually ended up adopting one that other Brian, would-be guest Brian, was going to do. So we'll get into all that some bitch and nonsense here in a dang old second, but that's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll do some other shit at the top of the show like we always do, Steve. We got 4 movies to talk about. What beer are you gonna be sipping on?
I did not bring a beer. Today was a little muggy and it was a little toasty, a little muggy. I just felt like trying something a little different. So I have, It's called Hoop Tea, and it is a spiked iced tea, and I have the peach flavor.
Oh, yeah. Hoop Tea.
Hoop Tea.
Who makes that? Do you know?
Well, it's by the Hoop Tea Company, but it's brewed in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So I assume,
it's contract brewed by somebody up there. Yeah,
right. Yeah, it's contract brewed, but I believe I don't think it's a part of like another brand. Yeah.
I see. So they're up at that old city facility there in La Crosse. Does a lot of contract brewing. How is it? Good? Bad?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. You might, I think you might think it's a little too sweet, but yeah, it doesn't have like any of those weird medicinal flavors, and it's not like overcarbonated in a way that the carbonation fucking makes it off either. So
yeah.
Yeah. I actually kind of like it.
That is a problem with peach flavored things for me because I love a peach. Good God, I love a good ripe peach, and I like peach flavored things, but they oftentimes do skew a little bit on the sweet side. Whereas, like, I mean, a good ripe peach is sweet, but there's just some acidity there. Come on, we're not babies. We can deal with a little acidity in our peaches.
Yeah, here's a good barometer. Do you like the Turkey Hill flavored iced teas?
I have not had one of those since I was probably a child, so no. Probably, as I'm going to assume no.
Okay, so like, I assume those are too sweet for you. So yeah. Like this is.
I don't like
this is
sweet tea in general. I love tea. I love iced tea, but I usually drink just a straight old unsweetened iced tea, maybe with a little bit of lemon in it.
Yeah.
And as of late, because I've been on a real health kick here, trying to lose some weights and all those sorts of things, exercising. I've been trying to cut down the amount of coffee I'm drinking because I do drink an ungodly amount of coffee, and I've just switched my habit of drinking a lot of just like pretty basically cheap coffee, like Amazon Essentials coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
I've just switched to really expensive tea. So I drink the same quantity, mostly green. I've been drinking a lot of green tea.
Yeah.
Like Chinese pan fried green tea. I found this website where I order all these fancy teas and they're expensive as fuck, but they're so good. And now I just turn it into a dang old tea dork, but apparently it's way better for you than especially the green tea than drinking a whole bunch of that dang old coffee.
Maybe. I don't know. I always thought the main problem with coffee was just like if you put milk and sugar in it, but otherwise it's like usually only like 5 calories and like has like that endothermic reaction of warming you up anyway. So
I think it's supposed to. I think it can be kind of hard on your stomach, especially in the quantities that I consume.
Sure.
But I know green tea has a lot of like health benefits, with all the antioxidants and whatnot, whatever. Maybe not. Yeah. Who fucking cares? I like green tea. I've been drinking on it.
Green tea rules.
Listen, worms are going to eat our eyes. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Doesn't matter because one day worms are going to eat our eyes. Maybe from behind. It'll just like tunnel into our brains and then they'll eat our brains and they'll eat our eyes on the way out. Doesn't matter. And then at that point, who gives a fuck what you drank when you're still alive? Your worm food. The worms don't even notice. I am drinking on a beer because, like you said, it's not hot today, but it's just fucking muggy. It's just humid here in the Pittsburgh area. So I went for the most refreshing beer in my fridge, which is to say, this here Doppelbock from Burgers Brewing. It's not at all. It is not at all. It's not that it's not refreshing, but this is not a refreshing type beer. This is a big old loaf of bread in a glass. But
yeah, that's something you drink and you just start sweating immediately.
This is called Celebrator, which is their Doppelbock. And hey, it's springtime, so bring out the Bock beers. But holy shit, this is a nice Bock beer. This is, as far as I'm concerned, I've not had a better Doppelbock made here in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know if I could even say anyone close to this. I mean, I know people will probably say like Trogs, but that isn't from Pittsburgh. That's not from Pittsburgh. 4 hours from here. Troganators. Yeah. And even then, I think this has got more complexity to it.
I do like a Troganator.
Yeah. No, I do too.
Yeah.
It's a more highly attenuated, more drinkable Doppelbock. This is a little bit, denser and breadier and less attenuated and sweeter and all those sorts of things. But it's still, it's balanced. It's not overly sweet because I do hate that in the Doppelbock. So
what about a St. Nicholas Bock from Penn?
There was a time where I would have said definitely that was near the top of my list, but the consistency issues with that brewery are always a bit of a struggle for me. There's been times where I drank a lot of Penn beer, and then other times when not so much. Even then, that beer is a little less like Munich centric to me. Like it's got a little bit more of like a darker, kind of approaching like chocolatey. Type of character to it, where this is just really toasty Munich forward. Not 100% Munich because I don't know if I dig on Munich that much. That would be like the super old school, like monastic freaking way of brewing it. I don't know if I want that. But it's really nicely attenuated, but still has a lot of malt depth to it, a little bit of hop character. Yeah, Saint Nick box not bad or anything, but it ain't as good as this one. In my humble opinion.
Yeah, that's just like the only other one I can really think of. It's the same problem we had last week when we were talking West Coast in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh brewed West Coast. There aren't that many. Doppelbox. There aren't that many either. So
I know. What a shame. What a weird scenario where there's not that many people who consistently brew Doppelbox. In any case, guys, the beersies out of the way, let's talk about real quick. We announced, if you don't subscribe to the Patreon, right? We do have one of them over there. It's patreon.com/Halloweens Forever. And you can support us over there with paper monies, $3 or $5 a month. If you submit, or if you subscribe at the if you submit and you subscribe to the $5 a month, Freudian slip there, perhaps, to the $5 level, you can join us on the Discord, and you can get our, a bunch of other fun stuff that's associated with the $3 tier, but you also get our Patreon exclusive podcast series, which we are wrapping up. We just recorded the last one. Did it release yet?
Yep, it's been out.
It's been out. That some bitch has been out. Our last episode of Family is Forever, where we went through all the fucking Fast and the Furious movies. And good God, I'm so happy it's behind us. But now, because Steve put me through that, now it's your boy's turn, and I get to decide what we do for the next Patreon exclusive podcast series. So we're going to be talking about, and I announced this on the Patreon show, we are going to be doing some fucking weird like Christian like propaganda horror movies. I don't know if yins all know about this, but it's a whole dang thing. There's a whole Mormon movie industry out in Utah, but even besides that, non-Mormon, other, Christian denominations, they like to sneak all that Jesus-y stuff into their movies. And I'm not talking religious horror like, The Exorcist or something like that. I'm talking about like basically hiding, like, or not even hiding, very much showcasing like pretty intense right-wing Christian evangelical themes, like anti-abortion and hey, if you have sex before you're married, you're going to hell, and bitch, you about to get raptured, and like all those types of themes into horror movies, or sci-fi horror thrillers and those sorts of things. So we're gonna watch some of these cringy son of a bitches every month on our next Patreon exclusive podcast series. Steve, where are we at name wise? I know we had one that you mentioned that I liked, but do we have any other options floating around out there? So
we had one from Dan from in a Discord when we were recording Fast 10, and he said fighting the devil is forever. That was a suggestion from him. And then in that episode, you were talking about how you had like a quote unquote youth group that you used to go to. And so that sent me down a road of like thinking of different things. And like for me, it wasn't youth group, it was CCD, because it was I was a Catholic boy, so they sent us to CCD. But like that doesn't roll off the tongue. CCD is forever, and most people don't know what that is anyway.
Right.
But I think youth group is forever is just a real like universal that hits most of those Presbyterian and Protestant denominations that like everybody has like some sort of youth group, or like Bible camp is the other one I was thinking. Bible camp is forever.
Vacation Bible School. That's what we called it. Yeah. Vacation Bible School is forever. That doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well either. Vacation Bible School is the place you went and put up with hearing people talk about Jesus for several hours so you could go play kickball. It's pretty much what Vacation Bible School is. And then
it was pretty much like it's like how people would go to timeshares as adults to get tickets to Disney. As children, you went and heard the Jesus spiel to get Kool-Aid and kickball.
You get Kool-Aid, kickball, ultimate frisbee, whatever you're playing. Yeah. We had I'll tell you a quick Vacation Bible School story that was pretty funny. And we still bring this up to this day. My brother, my cousins and I, we were in vacation Bible school, and one of our, craft time things was everyone just got like a plain white Frisbee, and you got to like decorate the Frisbee however you wanted.
Oh, cool.
Right? It was just something, I don't even think there was any type of like, Bible lesson associated with this. It was just fucking paint a Frisbee, kids. Like, go do this for a while. And this would have been, in the it was probably mid 90s. It was probably like 94 or something like that. I don't know. And my brother was a big fan of the basketball player Gary Payton of the Seattle Supersonics. Yeah. Okay. And his nickname was the Glove because he played defense so tight, on people that he just shut him down, and they called him the Glove. And so my brother made a Frisbee that he did this whole almost mural to Gary Payton on it. But he was, 8 years old. I don't know. This is in the early 90s. And he wrote the Gov gay payon. And to this day, he misspelled every word except for the. And to this day, every once in a while, we'll just be like hanging out with my cousins and be like, somebody will say something about the Gov gay payon. Which, of course, when you're like 8-10 years old, also in the early 90s, like somebody like just the word gay is funny, right? To you as a a little rat fuck 90s kid. The Gov gay payon. So
was it my only blessed be his name?
My most blessed be his name. The Gov gay payon. So that was the most memorable thing that ever happened to me at vacation Bible school. Anyway, guys, if you also had either boring or traumatic or both experiences with Christianity as a child, or you just like to watch really, really shitty, cringy movies and make fun of them, that's what we'll be doing over on the Patreon starting next month. Starting this month. This month. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because that was April was the 10th. So we're going to be doing it this month. Dang. So we put out one per month. By the end of the month, it'll go out there. Kind of depends on where this bonus episode falls in. But okay. Sweet. Let's get into these fucking movies. Let me reiterate the picks, but then we have some extra ones to come to the party. One specifically because of the little audible that I mentioned that we have to make. So Steve, tell the folks what you picked originally for your movie for the Showdown when we had a guest slated.
So originally I picked Dead Space Downfall because it was going to go in a drink a beer and play a game. They're video game focused. I was trying to play to that audience and garner a vote that way. So I picked that, but now, it's got to go to the audience vote. I don't know how safe I am anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't pick any like super well-known movies though. And we each picked like, both of mine are relatively recent. One of yours is not even that relatively recent, and then one of them was quite old. Anyway, so I picked as my original Showdown film Apollo 18 from 2011, which is this weird like found footage dang old space horror movie. And then the other Brian from the Play Game Watch a Movie podcast, he picked the movie Life from 2017. I started watching, and I had already watched up until the last like 20 minutes or so. I had to stop and go, I don't know, do life things, and then come back. And then Steve was like, do you want to do Life? Should I choose it? Like, what should we do? When we were kind of figuring out how we're going to pivot. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. I kind of like this movie. There were elements of it I liked. And then turns out I did like the ending quite a bit. So I'm going to defend Life from 2017, and then Steve, tell the folks what your second pick was, because you went off the fucking deep end. Yeah,
exactly. I went off the deep end, so I had to fire from the backcourt because we couldn't pick alien movies, we couldn't pick aliens. I couldn't risk picking like Alien Resurrection. I had an idea, but it felt cheap.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I could just pick Jason X, knowing it would go to an audience vote.
Oh yeah.
I could just pick Jason X, and I bet that
you would have won 100%.
Yeah, I bet I could have won with that, but that seemed cheap
just from
as well.
name notoriety and the silliness of it, and the fact that we had 3 other like relatively lesser known movies. Yes.
Yeah.
That would have been a real scumbag move.
It would have been a real scumbag move, and I didn't go with it. Instead, I went with Scumbag Movie.
Yeah.
And I was actually tossing up between 2 Roger Corman productions of Forbidden World and Galaxy of Terror. They're both relatively similar in that they're kind of ripping off Alien. Kind of. Not completely.
No. There are worse Alien ripoffs, but no, it's definitely heavily influenced.
Right. It's heavily influenced just by the popularity of the movie Alien coming out. That, hey, we're going to make our own low budget versions of Alien. And I went with Galaxy of Terror because I feel like the ending's better. The sleaze is a little different in this one. And also it has a better supporting cast.
It has a kind of a wild cast that I'm excited to talk about. Yeah, because there's some people in here that are very unsung. A lot of like unsung kind of character actors, and just a very eclectic cast, and a lot of acting from actors, which I always appreciate. So, all right, here's how I'm going to propose we do it, and by propose I mean this is how we're going to fucking do it, because I'm the boss, because I'm the fucking champ. And I get to call out the order. So I'm thinking what we do is we go back and forth. And I'm going to give you the option, Steve, if you want to, which of your movies you want to start out with. But I'm going to say Steve goes first, picks a movie, then I pick a movie, then Steve picks a movie, then I pick a movie.
Great.
So we just go back and forth like that. How's that work?
That sounds fine to me. I think I'm just going to start from the beginning and go with Galaxy of Terror. I think that's the one that's probably most interesting to people. And if they're listening at the top of the show, I want them to get most interested in going and watching it. It may be the least known property, being that it is from 1981. So like if we have if our younger audience is cluing into something to go check out as like a weird, dirty, sleazy space film, like this is it. So I'll start with Galaxy of Terror.
All right, fair enough. Dang straight up space slasher. As close to a space slasher as you can get without saying Jason X. Probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this movie goes hand in hand with Dead Space Downfall, because Dead Space Downfall is also just a straight up slasher, and it's just like gross, and it could have occurred anywhere, but it occurred in space because it was tied to the video game. But Galaxy of Terror it feels like a lot of things, not just a ripoff of Aliens, but it feels like a lot of things at once. It feels kind of like a Star Wars movie almost.
Yeah, definitely the settings on like the bridge and everything. It feels very Star Trek-y.
Yeah, it has this storyline of that feels like, what if Star Wars was from the Empire's perspective? And they bumblefuck their way into a Lovecraftian nightmare. Yeah. Like, what if the Emperor sent stormtroopers into a Lovecraft nightmare? And it's like, Disney might as well just make that as their next side story or whatever. But so the film starts with just it's a straight up cold open, similar to any other slasher film. A dude is running away, and then he gets killed. It's just does he get attacked by something invisible? That's what I would like to know, because it's confusing. Yeah, it seems like he gets attacked by something invisible. He's running from an unseen creature, and the only thing you get is like these quick little edits to a mirror, and the mirror like seems to have a moving figure in it, but you don't get a clear idea of what it is. So it's just like it's a real quick scene just to set you up that like, hey, you're in for a dang old space slasher, because this is all it is.
Yeah. The thing that really jumps out at me I've seen this movie, I mean, at least one other time before this. I'll say I've seen it one other time. I might have seen it twice before this, but the production of it is just charming and fun and not. It feels schlocky, but not cheap, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's done with love. It's not done. I would say it's cheap, but not lazy. Maybe is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Because it's got these great like painted backdrops, like really animated sets with a lot going on. I would say the music is just unhinged synth puke, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty bad, but I kind of like it too.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I like could go back, if Roger Corman did remasters of his films, which he doesn't, but if he did,
there's no money in it. There's no money in it.
Redoing the sound design on this would be the one thing, just because there's a lot of sound effects that are also things that like we just recognize them from being overused.
I have a great one later that I sat there and just drove me nuts because I couldn't think of where I heard it, and then I finally figured out I was so pleased with myself.
Okay, yeah,
but sound design is bad.
Yeah, sound design it could be better, but the story is really simple. After we get that cold open, we go to like a Star Wars planet, and we get an actual like voiceover, which is crazy because then this character never appears again. She does like 5 lines of voiceover.
Yeah.
But she essentially sets it up like I'm the keeper of the game on this planet named Xerxes, and I obey the master, and the master is in charge. So already we get this character, the master, and his head is completely illuminated in red light and hides his identity. And it's like, this is the emperor. Like this is
it's the emperor. It's the lo-fi emperor. I wrote Space Witch talking to a guy with a red ring pop for a head,
right?
Glowing red ring pop.
And we get told by one of his underlings, who like the dude kind of looks like Grand Moff Tarkin, who was one of the underling generals who wasn't a witch or anything, or wasn't a Jedi in any way. He just calls in and he's like, "Uh-oh, the one ship we sent out, it crashed." And he's like, "Where did it crash? Because I'm evil." And he's like, "It crashed on planet Morganathis." He's like, "Oh, Morganathis, it's time."
This movie has a lot of like plot getting in the way of the story that you don't really have to pay attention to. Like you're not really missing that much. Like maybe some of the down parts wouldn't feel as boring if you paid closer attention, but like you're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to miss much if you don't try to follow this bonkers ass overwritten story.
Yeah. It's not hard to follow once you get a handle on what the hell's going on, but it takes so long to kind of get a handle on what's going on. Like there's little clues, but like all of this stuff up front is so fucking just unexplained. Like it's obvious. Like it feels like it's based off like a series of novels. It feels like this is Dune 3. And they never made Dune 1 or 2.
No, it just feels like a pulpy paperback, you pick up at a used bookstore, and it's part of a series, and you didn't read the series, but it was 50 cents, so you bought it and tried to read it.
Yeah. After that, we just get thrown into this rescue mission by this other crew. And this is where we get introduced to like this huge cast of characters. Like it's
a shitload of people.
It's bigger than Alien. And that's kind of like one of the things that made Alien unique is like Alien had like this large cast of characters that gets whittled down to a star in Sigourney Weaver. So like you weren't supposed to take Sigourney Weaver as the star when the movie first starts. And kind of the same way with this film, you aren't supposed to take necessarily anybody as the star because there are just like enough, relatively known character actors. And like Brian was saying, there's a bunch of actors from like the earlier days. And this is always a hallmark of Corman films as well, as like, it's just a confluence of older actors getting roles and then like younger actors taking chances. And that's kind of where this confluence exists in these Corman films. So you have these older actors in Ray Walston, who plays the cook core, but is also the he's the master in disguise.
Yeah, you don't learn that until, well, you don't officially learn it to the end, but it's pretty obvious well before that. But
you also have Captain Trantor. She is the pilot of the ship. She's played by Grace Zabriskie, and she's like an older actress, but like she's continued working, like way into the day. Like she just had a role in like a video game called The Quarry. So like she's been in a lot of stuff.
She acts very hard, and in a good way. I enjoy her character. She's probably one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character. But she's acting like she's chewing on the fucking scenery. Yeah. She's like, she goes crazy pretty quick. So she's playing crazy real hard.
Yeah, but she was in Inland Empire, and then she was in a couple episodes of like the Twin Peaks: The Return, I believe. So yeah, she's like, she does a lot of acting. She's out there. It's just you may not recognize her right away. So, oh yeah, she was in everything of Twin Peaks. My bad.
Yeah, she was in the original series. Like, that's where I recognize her from. But yeah, it makes sense that she's in a bunch of other Lynch films too. Yeah,
but yeah, she got her start in the late 70s. Let's see, and then we have notable Sid Haig and Robert Englund. Yeah, these feel like real early. I mean, Sid Haig had been acting for a while because he's done all kinds of schlock through the 70s. But like this is a real early role for Robert Englund because he comes before Freddy. But you get some good Freddy looks from him during this film, which is great.
It's weird to see like the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Robert Englund that with like, he's got this like affable personality kind of his character, which is a bit jarring because everyone immediately thinks of him as Freddy. But it's weird. And Sid Haig, I mean, he has maybe my favorite scene in the movie. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, which we'll talk about, but and he's going for the gusto in this. I love it.
They actually give him like a good piece of work in the film, and it's like it feels interesting. And he also has like his own kind of sort of mysterious backstory that isn't explained, and you have to read a 3 other novels to get the idea. But the other note I had about Robert Englund though is like he reminds me of Woody from Cheers. When Woody Harrelson first joined the cast of Cheers, and he was just like kind of like dopey and bright-eyed and bushy, like he just I don't know why.
Overzealous young dope who's just like, oh gee shucks kind of.
Yeah. And we also have Aaron Moran, who is probably best known as Joni Mitchell or Joni Cunningham on Happy Days and Joni Loves Chachi. Like she's probably best known for that, but then for some reason winds up in this bonkers ass, violent ass movie. Like who fucking knows? So we get introduced to all these characters. This is our rescue crew to go save the original crew, which is from the cold open, the last survivor we saw get killed. And from there, like they just land on this dark ass crazy planet that's, again, similar to Alien, that just everything's dark and blue, and that's because it's easy to just kind of paint that on rather than worry about anything else. Don't like this.
Can I throw out two other quick performances, because I love Zalman King, who plays Balon in this, which is like the insecure, overzealous commander kind of guy. You may, if you've ever seen Blue Sunshine, it is a super underrated horror flick, like psychological kind of horror mystery thing. Blue Sunshine, go check it out. I think it's his only like real true starring role, and he's fantastic in it. Most of the time I feel like he plays these types of characters, but they give him a lot to do in Blue Sunshine, and he just fucking delivers. I love that movie. And then Edward Albert, who plays Cabrin, who in this movie, I've seen him in other things, but in this movie, he looks strikingly like a late 70s, early 80s version of Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords. Like I couldn't see him without seeing Jermaine.
Yeah, it is pretty close. Yeah. They both do pretty well. Zalman King, I think most people would know more from like his behind the camera work, because he does he wrote and produced like the Red Shoe Diaries. He did like the in between sleaze, like because he also did 9.5 Weeks as a producer. So like that's sleaze that's not quite softcore pornography, but it's still too edgy and too much for like most regular people. Yeah. It's a notorious movie in the general zeitgeist for its sleaziness. Yeah. And then the Red Shoe Diaries was just like, again, I don't classify it as softcore, but it was just like, it was too horny for most. I'll just put it as that. Too horny for most.
That's a shirt. Too horny for most.
Yeah. But yeah, after they land on the planet, though, it just devolves into a straight up like slasher film. They keep breaking off into little side groups. They keep splitting up Scoob, and then when they split up, they all get in trouble. You know, they send this the first guy to die is this young kid Cause. They send him off on his own because they know he's a panicky Pete. He draws attention. They can't have that around.
He is a full-on spaz. Like, he's just like this guy walks around a corner, hears a noise, does a backflip onto his head. Like, he just is really, comical slapstick amount of panicky.
Yeah, he had to die. His only lines were screaming and carrying on. His script, when he got it with his pages, all it said was hootin' and hollering.
Yeah, and just act like you're on skates every time a sound happens.
Yeah.
And it's just your first time roller skating.
Somebody just buttered his shoes every time in wardrobe.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets it first. He gets killed by like this bug monster, which I gotta swear is some sort of recycled element from another Corman film. It
feels like it.
Yeah.
It's just generic tentacle-y type of creature appendages.
Yeah. It's like just weird insect, and it has like a shitty insect mouth, and like it's kind of half-heartedly painted. You can tell they didn't care that much about like having it on camera, because they didn't want to film too much of it, because it's only just like you see some bug arms and then the teeth come over the top, and then you accidentally see the eye.
That was that one. Yeah, I'm getting too mixed up. I was thinking about later with the tentacles. But that's a different white. That's a different random white guy, unmemorable white guy who dies.
Yeah. But I mean, I think he is the next one to die, because after this Cause character dies, they discover that there's like some disturbance in the distance. And in the distance is like this crazy fucking pyramid. And I'll have to say, like, going back to what you were saying about how the production design feels schlocky but not cheap, like this pyramid design is right up there. Like, it feels...
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it feels like... this is where you start to feel the Lovecraft influence, but also it's still the Geiger influence as well, because it's like a flesh pyramid over, spires of spines, reaching up to a pinnacle, but then like the pinnacle is also almost self-floating because it stands on its own little posts. It's it's a really cool looking design, but like
you get some big like monolithic Lovecraft shit, but it's also organic. So yeah, they're definitely biting on off from both ends.
Yeah. So whoever came up with that idea was just having a fun time. They didn't care. They just enjoyed it. Somebody just painted it and then showed it to Corman, and they're like, well, I guess we have to build a set for this.
Yeah, he was just pissed he had to spend a couple bucks on it.
Yeah.
But I would love to learn where he got this set from, because it is clearly like a sci-fi set, or it's some sort of like, fucking, old like disarmed military sub or something that they shoot in.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just got whole panels full of beat bops.
Right.
Like it's It's just that perfect type of like second rate 70s space tech with like toggle switches and like flashing little square buttons that are all different colors. And it's like it's like the Starship Enterprise if you bought it from Big Lots. Like it's just got a bunch of beep boops and bink bumps and stuff like that, and that's it. That's tech.
Yeah, it really feels like in order to buy all these little panels with like, there's no way he had somebody sit around and make these panels. He just had to send people to like some sort of like army surplus auction or something, and like just rip the panels out of a decommissioned sub or something, because it's just like, you're not building this. Just like take all this and then like make the lights work, and then we're gonna push the buttons in, and we're gonna toggle the toggles, and we're gonna turn the knobs.
Yeah, it's like for a Hyper Yinzer reference from the original version of the Exterminator at Kennywood, when they had that whole little walkthrough area at the beginning when you were waiting in line, where it just had a bunch of buttons and knobs and flashing things all over.
Yeah,
that's the whole ship.
Way back in the day, before there was like holographic storytelling elements to a ride while you waited in line, they just gave you toggles and switches to flip.
And then just a voiceover over the loudspeaker that was like, hey guys, something went wrong, and you're like, wait, are we supposed to be hearing this?
But I'm in line. Uh-oh.
I can't get out. That would be embarrassing.
Nobody else is turning back. Well, I'm not a coward. But yeah, they climb the pyramid, and this is where the second guy gets it that you're talking about with the tentacles, and this is where the real bad sound design comes in too, because this dude goes down a dark hole, and out of the darkness comes these tentacles, and they have the most classic schlorp and schlop fucking gloop and glop sounds as they come out and attach to him, and it is so fucking distracting, because like
they use it a bunch in this movie too. The same sounds.
That is so distracting, because there's actually a little bit of good makeup happening in this scene as well, because like when the one hits him in the face, like there's a scene of like his eye is just squished out of his head. Like you don't see it physically get squished, but the makeup is that his eye is squished out. Yeah. But it's so hard to like pay attention to that and give it credit, because it's the most stock standard blurp, blurp, gurgle, gurgle.
Yeah. So the kind of noise, the thing I kept hearing, and because they probably use it 5 times in this movie, I kept hearing, what do I know that from? Like, I know I've heard it before, but there's something hyper specific that I know it from. It took me like hours of thinking about it, and then I finally placed it. It is in the intro sequence to the one of the original Nicktoons, Rugrats, when at the end, right before the title card comes on screen, Tommy Pickles like squeezes the bottle and milk comes out, and it covers the screen, and then it runs down. That's the noise. They use that noise.
It is. Yeah. Yes.
I was so proud of myself for coming up with that. It took me 4 hours of just thinking about it. What the fuck do I know that from? And then it's from the intro to Rugrats.
Yeah, every time I heard it, I was thinking like that's cartoon sound effects, but I didn't have like a specific reference to it. But yeah, like, and I'm sure you can hear it in other cartoons as well. But that's the thing. Like,
oh yeah,
with this movie being from 1981, maybe at the time that sound wasn't so fucking prevalent. But like now, it's like anybody who's older than that, like, yeah, it's just we've heard it too much. I think after this, they kind of regroup again, and then they start heading into the pyramid, and this is where the pyramid doors open, and now we're getting into like, let's feature Sid Haig for a bit, and like this was a standout performance for me as well. Just because up to this point, he's been like this weird, silent enforcer carrying around these throwing stars. which is like, this is weird. This is whatever.
Maybe the single worst weapon for space.
Yeah.
Is a throwing star. Perhaps maybe a boomerang would be the only thing that would be worse in this environment. But yes, the worst thing of all time, space ninja stars.
Right. It's like,
which feature prominently later.
Yeah, they feature prominently later because like he throws his stars into this opening door to keep it from opening, which is weird. I don't know why you wouldn't want it to open, but yeah, he throws it in there and then they break. And it's like, okay, well, why'd you do that for? And then we start getting kind of this developing narrative that like, oh, those stars, they were crystals and like that's actually part of his religion. And then like you have to think back a little bit into the way he acted previously, that, you know, like he has this stoic monk like, you know, stature about him. And I feel like they were trying to make this like a Klingon without without putting makeup on him. Because like Klingons are like that as well. Like they have those weird, you know, battle staffs that are also swords. Yeah. That are like really important to them, that they'll drop phasers in order to use these instead. So like,
that makes more sense. Yeah. I just thought they were trying to make him like a fucking Shaolin monk from space kind of thing. But no, it is probably a Klingon-y type of thing. Because, you know, Sid Haig, part of the reason he's so well known is he has a very unique look to him. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying he looks like, you know, Worf or somebody like that, but he does have he has a very unique look to him.
Yeah. I mean, like he's first just generally a big dude. So like, yeah, like he's like 6'3", 6'4", so he's bigger than the rest of the cast to begin with. And then he has just kind of like that. He has those intense stares that he can give. And he gives one after his, you know, stars are broken because that antsy commander tells him, you stay behind and watch the door, and tries to give him a gun. And he's like, I don't do guns. I do the stars. That's my thing. Did you get that? But then just the way he...
It was in my contract.
Yeah, it's the way I go. But then just the way he puts the gun to his head is like, you know, it's fucking super intense for like, okay, like you're finally somebody's really acting for some reason. Yeah. But like Sid Haig gives it his all in these last couple scenes of like, he's putting his gun to his commander's head, threatening to frag him from behind. And then, you know, like is upset at the gun anyway and throws it down. And then he meets his end by, you know, those doors start to close on him. He tries to stop them, but gets squished out, and his stars reform, and he's super happy about that. He's like, oh, my stars are back. I love my stars. And he tries to grab them, and it like snaps off and starts crawling up his arm. We're also getting good practical effects in this as well. Like he's a lot
of good practical effects.
Yeah. He's giving a good performance, but also we're getting good practical effects because this piece of his star is climbing up his arm and like
under his skin.
Yeah. Under his skin. And then he karate chops his own arm off, which is probably the hardest fucking thing I've ever seen anybody do.
Yeah, he cuts his own arm off. And then they just show the arm just kind of like laying there in the dirt. It's clearly somebody buried, you know, or like behind a screen to make it look like it, because the arm just reanimates and throws the ninja star, the rest of the star, into his chest and heals his own arm.
Which, I mean, in context of the film is really, it's kind of weird because like what we find out is this pyramid draws on everybody's fears and makes them see everything that they fear, and then if they can't rebuke their fears, they get killed by their fears. So like, is his fear that is he just afraid of his stars? Like I assume I started to assume it's part of his religion. That like,
I took it as he's afraid of his own badassness. He's so badass he scares himself.
Right. Exactly. That's the other way to take it, because he karate chops his own arm off. Like, I'm so badass I can karate chop my own arm off.
I think he did it with a star, but still, like, it's he cuts his own arm off clean, like through the bone.
Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So I guess he's afraid of himself. He's afraid of how strong he can be and how much damage he can do to himself.
How badass he is.
Yeah. His death is immediately followed by the craziest fucking death. That is
the most distressing scene.
An absolute slime of a scene. We have this actress. Her name is Taffy O'Connell. She basically plays just like the sex pot of the crew. We don't see her do much sexy beyond her being Robert Englund's seatbelt in one scene. But you know, she's obviously like way buxom for a flight suit. That it's just like they're not hiding that.
Nope.
She has previously stated like she's afraid of worms, and so this is where we start to get our first kind of clue that like, oh, the temple, the pyramid, whatever, it feeds on fear. She says she's afraid of worms. She comes out to find Sid Haig's body, and you know his arm is chopped off and it's covered in worms. So she tries to kill all the worms, but one escapes.
But they're like mealworms or like silkworms or something, like little crawly, almost caterpillar-y type of things. Like not like an earthworm.
No, not like an earthworm, but they definitely went to like a pet store and got some mealworms and just threw them on top of the arm, and they're like, here we go. That's the production.
Yeah.
That's design. They're not real aliens. It's just shit we found at a pet store.
Yeah. There's a mall nearby.
Yeah.
We went in there and said, how much for, this? And then they were like, that's too expensive. That's mealworms. Yes.
I got a couple lizards to feed. What kind of deal can you give me?
Yeah.
But the one worm escapes and it grows, like a kaiju. And it eventually reaches like, it's about as big as like the host monster when it finally is done growing.
It gets pretty big. It goes like Rita Repulsa throws down her staff and makes her monster grow. And it kind of does that like, just gets bigger. And I would say it gets to be like a solid, like 12 feet tall. Like it's pretty fucking big.
Yeah. It's a pretty big costume. I don't know if and where this came from something else, but like it's a solid creature design. So, I mean, maybe they pilfered it from another production, but like it's a solid, it's a solid creature. And then it proceeds to sexually assault.
He eats her clothes off, I guess. I don't know.
It eats her clothes off and slimes her, and then it gives a couple pumps. Like it has some definite thrusts to it while it has her naked on the ground.
I wrote, it pleasures her to death? ?
Yeah.
Because she's like screaming and then shifts to, I mean, they're very much trying to communicate that she's changed her mind and thinks this is awesome, or maybe doesn't think it's awesome, but is taken over in the throes of sensual passion.
Yeah. It's one of those things where like maybe they had her record sexy screams and put it over something horrible. But like, it is definitely like, kind of that back and forth of like, I don't know what exactly this is. And it's not good. All I know is it's not good.
No matter what. It's not good. It's a wild decision to put in the movie.
Yeah. And she's just completely slimed over and like, just, it's gross. I had the note, did this movie invent hentai?
It has a lot of, I wrote down things that, adjacent to that on several occasions. It's very hentai, tentacle pornographic. Kinda.
Yeah. Just between this scene and then eventually Erin Moran's character dies, and she also dies by way of weird tentacle probing and grasping, but also it ends in like an incredible, like just head destruction scene. So it's not as intentionally horny as this scene, but it's just like the amount of tentacle usage is kind of out there. The other film, Forbidden World, it also has some unpleasant like usage, like the alien's tail in that movie goes up a woman's vagina and just blows through her back. Out the top. So like, that's also like at some point, I believe that Roger Corman Films inspired hentai in Japan. They got these films at their midnight theaters and they were like, you know what? I'm going to go home and draw that.
You know what? I want to see more of that, and I don't have the internet, so I got to draw.
Yeah. There's only a couple of these films that are showing what I like, and what I like is worm stuff. I better start.
I have a very specific taste, I've learned.
Yeah. This movie's unlocked something in me, and now I'll draw it forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, like, not to say that all the other deaths are pretty underwhelming, but like, you know, there's it just continues down the path of being a slasher film. Bodies are piling up, you know, groups keep coming back and forth and coming together. The captain has a particularly gruesome death where she's, you know, having PTSD memories of a previous mission, and so she winds up like just walking out an airlock, and then Robert Englund discovers her body, and it's just like the face is completely exploded off. Like it's just it's a gooey skeleton that comes at him.
Old Melt's face. Yeah. That might be the most iconic like still image of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great because they do just flash it. But
right.
It's memorable.
Yeah. It's just brutal. And like that's one of the things I really like about the film is just like the practical effects are way up there, and even though the production design is a little schlocky and like just obviously dated as well, like I don't know, it still holds up as just like an interesting film to look at. Like it doesn't even in comparison to like Carnosaur is a Roger Corman film that feels cheap and schlocky. Whereas this feels...
Yes, it does.
Yeah, this just feels schlocky, but it doesn't feel cheap for whatever reason.
Honestly, right up to the end.
Yeah.
Because there's some big set pieces that I really like in this. Like when the fucking space demon Wolfman or whatever that just absolutely fucks Balin.
Yeah.
And just like rips him up, splits him open, and throws him off a fucking bottomless lattice wall or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that whole like set. Obviously, most of it's like a painted background or something, but it's a cool set piece.
Yeah. I honestly couldn't decide if that was a painted background or not, because
I think when they are from a distance it is, but when they come up close, it's not. It's you know, it's the structure's there.
Yeah. Because it's like it's an interesting kind of like, it's gooey without being actually gooey, but it has those.
But it looks like it's stretched. Yeah. It looks like something's elastic.
It looks organic without being gooey. Is probably a better way to say it. And then like it's just these organic structures, and then it probably is like the rice paper that it's filling in the holes, and then they have lights behind the rice paper just blasting light through. And it's like, it is a really cool looking set. And then like you're saying, that when they show the unders of the bridge or they're far away, like, yeah, that's matte painting. But that's probably another thing where like the painter fucking painted something maybe. And then Corman said, I guess we'll build this too. Fuck.
We got to make that. Guess we got to build another fucking set.
Yeah.
I think I made money. A couple of things like leading into it, because I think we're pretty much close to the ending here, that I wanted to call out is this cast is just too big. Like there's 10 main characters that we're constantly visiting. And it's just so hard to keep track of what everyone's doing and why. So it's very easy to just be like, fuck it, I don't care. And also, I would say a huge chunk of the dialogue is fucking horrible. Yeah. Like, I'll say one thing, like the one character, Cabrin, I just mentioned. So he's the one who looks like Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords. He says shit on a regular basis that makes no fucking sense. Like he speaks in like almost these like not limericks, but he speaks in like these like supposed to be like clever turns of phrase. Like at one point he says to the one girl who's like Joni, he says something along the lines of like, if we play the odds, we lose. Yeah. And then several minutes later she says, aren't you afraid? Because she's like really afraid because of like tight spaces. That's her fear. Aren't you afraid? And he goes, I'm too scared to be.
Like this.
That's a fucking great line. You just picked a synonym.
Yeah.
And then said you were too scared.
Yeah.
Like that's great.
That's the Incredible Hulk's line from the Avengers. It's like, well, my secret for not getting angry is that I'm always angry. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? It's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, his character, for being essentially what, again, comes down to the main character, is so fucking weak throughout the rest of the film. But then you have like these characters with interesting backstories, but you don't get to dive into those backstories because, one, they're not the main characters, and two, there's too many goddamn other people. So like,
I was so mad when I remembered that he was the main character, because I was like, that motherfucker's gonna die, and then more and more I'm like, oh no, fuck, he's at the end. He survives because he's one of the worst characters.
Yeah. But like, the captain, she has her PTSD stuff that is like interesting. Sid Haig in his like, weird religion behind the crystals. And even Erin Moran's character, because she says pretty early on, like, she has like telepathic powers. And it's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder how that's going to play into it. And it doesn't, because she gets killed. So
it really doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
She just like, they ask her to predict things and she kind of does.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. She kind of gets it. But yeah. The film ends, and it just ends in a funny way that made me think of video games, because it gets revealed that Core, played by Ray Walston, he's the master and he's been behind all this. And pretty much everybody dies except for Cabron. And Cabron has this showdown with him. And Core is like, well, you had your chance, and everybody else could have lived too if they had just rejected their fears. And they could have made it all the way to this end, except for now. And then when he says except for now, like
this is a real dumb line. I remember that line.
This red shield comes up and all of these red lights go on. And then Cabron has to fight all of the monsters that showed up in the entire film. And it's like, this is just like a boss rush at the end of a video game. Like where a game that doesn't have a final boss, they just make you fight all the previous bosses instead. He's like, time for the boss rush. And it's just like 5 minutes him flipping around.
Well, that and also then like all his like resurrected friends as like zombie versions of his friends he has to fight too.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is he's just the only thing he's done this entire episode, this entire movie, is just say dumb shit and like try to look like a heartthrob. But all of a sudden at the end, we learn he's a motherfucking space ninja. He literally starts doing Ninja Gaiden flips,
right? Like
doing the jump tuck flip. And then he just fucking karates the whole boss rush that you mentioned. He just karates everybody.
Yeah.
And you're like, since when?
Yeah.
He was walking around with a gun the whole time.
At what point?
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like they never give you a scene where like, so obviously he's never been affected by anything in the pyramid because he's not afraid, right? But at no point does
he's too bad to be afraid.
I think he's too dumb to be afraid.
Or too dumb to be afraid. Yeah. If you see his fucking face, that's more likely, I guess.
He's just too stupid. That's why he's just full of like, chicken soup for the soul maxims of all the time.
Yeah.
If you never play the odds, you can't win. And the win in the odds. And the odds can't beat you if you don't play the game. So like,
he's just coming up with these fucking dumb turns of phrase with his fucking little mustache.
Yeah. So, okay, it makes sense that he never sees something that he's afraid of and never has to fight it. Great. But like, show him having a showdown with somebody else at some point. Like, even if it's the beginning of the film and he's like in a training room doing like some crazy stick fighting or something with other, and he beats up like 3 guys in a dojo, just to let you know that he has some skills. Not where this stuff comes out of nowhere and he's like, pow, 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 I got everybody. I win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like the ending though, where he does fight off all of the monsters and he fights, I guess the dead crew is supposed to be his fear at this point, and dead Erin Moran, because like he was in love with her, but then she tried to choke him and he's like, I'm not into that, bro. Put me down.
Yeah.
But the ending is it's revealed that this was all a game the whole time. And this is how the master transfers his power and picks like a new successor. And I do like kind of the horror realization that Ray Walston puts on him of like, well, you're the master now, dog. And he has to come to terms with that. And he's like, well, I can just not. I'll just run away. And he's like, and then the planet will die.
Yeah.
And do you want to be the person who, and he's like, you'll still be the master with the power. And then you'll be the one who didn't help anyone. Goodbye. Which, I mean, it's a cool way to curse somebody. I like it.
I guess so. I like to pretend that he did just fuck off and say, well, never mind. I ain't doing it. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. Yeah. And then he just went home and then he created the share zone, like with all the skull means and stuff. Because that's pretty much the type of shit that he says every time.
I like to imagine he left that room and then he gave his powers to Robert Englund. He's like, you be the master.
Oh, yeah. This is a Freddy prequel.
Yeah. You be the master, not me. I don't want to.
Yeah, I like this movie. It's fun. It's charming. I will say it's one of those movies that when somebody brings it up, you remember liking it more than you do a little bit because it does drag at times and it's overwritten and there's too many fucking characters. And it's just like a intensely flawed movie, but fun and charming. But it's you remember the fun, gory, sleazy space parts, I did not remember how trash the sound is, like not even just the stock effects and stuff, but I think the mixing, like if I would not have had closed captions on, I would not have been able to follow the story at all because some people's voices are so quiet. Maybe that was a shitty Tubi rip that I was watching. Maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. I watched it on Tubi as well, and I didn't have that problem. But also, I do watch. I do watch with headphones on too. So,
that might make a difference. But anyway, there's a lot of walking in and out of just like big anus looking tubes and like talking about how scared they are, that sort of stuff. Where it's like this movie is a little padded out, I would say at points, but it's fun. It's fun and it's charming and it's got beep boops and doodads and space monsters.
Yeah.
And,
it's got sprockets and gizmos and it's got fun little space packs with lights on them. And there's the one time where he kisses Erin Moran and her lights are out. But when he kisses her, her lights light up.
Do you think that was on purpose?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It was weird because they don't acknowledge it.
Right.
And I thought I was like, oh, was that just like a, was that just a weird happy accident or weird accident? Maybe not happy. I don't know.
Yeah. But also, and we did forget to mention like Freddy when he fights himself, because I'm just calling him Freddy for that scene. Like when Robert Englund fights himself, he does. I forgot about that one. He does give some real strong Freddy looks at the camera, which is like it's cool to see.
Yes.
So yeah.
The evil version of him is very you could see the proto Freddy stare for sure.
Yeah. And he gets a knife. So it's it's a real proto Freddy. He has a knife and he has a stare.
That's true.
Then he graduates to adding more blades and having burn face. But
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's
fun movie.
That's Galaxy of Terror, and that movie rules.
It was a good one. It was a fun one. There's a lot of wackiness. There's a lot of memorable scenes. I mean, even Sid Haig getting the blade up his arm, cuts his own arm off, and then the blade throws his own ninja star into his chest. That alone, it's worth the price of admission. Okay. I am going to start off, you know what? And I'm gonna do the movie that I picked first. I'm going to talk about Apollo 18, directed by Gonzalo Lopez Galego. Galileo Gallego. Anyway, so this movie, I just watched for the first time, or this is the first time watch for me. I watched it. I started getting into it. I was like, oh, I like this. This kind of sounds fun. Like I was familiar with it. I think when I originally had discussed watching it or picking it, I was thinking about a different movie. And then before I actually picked it this time, I sat down and watched it and I was like, okay, I like this. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't my first pick. Like, but then as you recall, I kind of got a little flustered when we were picking because there was a lot of back and forth, and there were certain things it couldn't do, and whatever. So
sounds like a whole
but I really
lot
like
of
this
excuses.
No, I like this movie. I really like this movie. Okay, so first of all, it is a found footage, dang old space horror movie, which is I don't know if I could think of any other found footage space movies, but I'll go through a couple people in the cast real quick. Not like people you perhaps recognize their face who like maybe popped up for a second in certain things, but I don't know any of these people aside from, like, I honestly think a few of them are like perhaps like commercial actors or were commercial actors at some point, because I do recognize their face. But I look through IMDb's and I don't know a whole lot about them. The three main characters are really the only three characters that you see their face, with the exception of maybe some quick sequences with like their family, like flashbacks or whatever. You have Warren Christie playing Ben Anderson. We'll just call him Ben. We have Lloyd Owen as Nate and Ryan Robbins as John. And then we get a couple other people. We get this kind of mission control guy. We'll get into that, and we get like a DOD guy. But technically, generally speaking, it's a 3-person cast. So we have Ben, Nate, and John. So you get a little bit of a text scroll at the beginning that just basically says this is sets up the whole found footage thing. And they talk about, there was this plan to go back to the moon after the initial, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin mission. But then after like a follow-up mission, then the 3 planned missions after that got canceled due to, quote unquote, budget concerns. But poses the question, like, was it for another reason? What's going on here? So Apollo 17 did go. So the mission before us. So then they send Apollo 18, which is this mission with the crew that we've just introduced. Not only is it a found footage horror movie, it's a Christmas movie as well. At least the opening takes place like they land on the moon on Christmas. But Apollo 18, you learn in the initial interviews with the 3 astronauts, is this classified, like, top secret mission that's being like handled by the Department of Defense. And they just think they're going up there to place some like these cameras and surveillance satellites and stuff to be able to spy on the Russians. So this is a period piece set in the early mid 70s, right? Because they talk about Watergate. On it, so it's yeah. So they did say what year it was. It was 74, I want to say, maybe.
It was probably 73, 74, because Apollo 17 was 1972.
Yeah.
So like that one did happen. They really did go to the moon. I was trying to decide whether or not I should go moon conspiracies on this episode or not. I'll say they go to the moon.
Yeah.
But I also might say
hollow
the moon.
Yeah.
I might also say the moon is hollow and full of Nazis. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's green cheese. But yeah, so you meet John, Ben, and Nate. And they do a pretty tight job of setting up right off the bat, like kind of who they are, right? What's happening, the nature of their mission. I mean, it's like 4 minutes that you kind of have a basic understanding of what's going on here. So Nate is the kind of old head commander who's been around for a long time, and all 3 of them are kind of seem like they are not the A team, if you will. Like they're all kind of really thankful to be getting this opportunity to go up in not just into space, but to go on a mission to the moon. So Nate is the kind of old head field commander, seems like considerably older than the other 2. John is the pilot, so he's not actually going to be leaving the ship, and he's a little You could tell he's a little butthurt about the fact that the other two are going to be actually walking on the moon and he's not going to get a chance. But, that's his job and whatever. And Ben is the kind of more young, like gung-ho captain with the young family and all that sort of thing. So about 4 or 5 days, they land on Christmas Day on the moon. I like the way this is. And again, this is a 2011 film. So, this is not that recent of a flick. And I love how it's like cleverly shot and edited. It very much gives it this kind of vintage, early to mid 70s footage look to it. I think it looks pretty good for the most part.
I don't, but
no. You don't think so?
No.
Why not?
It looks the footage, the footage degradation. It looks overworked. Like there's just too much. Like we put too much grains and scratches and blips into it.
Well, every once in a while you get the little lines and scratches do feel a little much. I mean, they're trying to communicate that this footage was left on the fucking moon for a period of time, right?
Right.
Or whatever. So it got damaged in some capacity and it's not perfect. Yes, I agree. But also
even on the Earth stuff, when they're doing the interviews, like they're doing the interviews and they're doing like kind of the family home movie stuff, like all that stuff is overworked too with the After Effects. It's just like, it does. I don't know. It doesn't sell it to me. And this is the other thing. Remember how we were talking, the Late Night with the Devil, how it doesn't make sense to frame it in that device because they break that framing device however many times in that film. This one isn't quite as bad, but also it still is just like, oh, so they recovered all of this footage, and also 16 millimeter cameras couldn't film for that long. Like, you would have to you would have to have a huge fucking reel. I'm just saying, it has to be a huge fucking reel.
Yeah.
And you also have to change it out in like a dark room. It's too much.
1 in 100 people are going to give a shit about this.
I know 1 in 100, but
1 in 200 people. Yeah.
Well, you're on a show with one of those people, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. It did not, as a layman, it did not bother me at all. Like I said, I can see where you say in certain instances, like they really did a lot of the After Effects to do the little, oh, this one's a little clippy, this one's a little clicky. Oh, there's like a sun flare here. Like I get it. They're doing a lot.
Yeah.
They're probably a little heavy handed with it at times, but overall the lighting and that kind of creepy, grainy scenes of like the security camera kind of stuff, I thought was kind of cool. But
Dan in the Discord is on my side. He also hated it.
Well, I mean, here I'm surrounded by fucking dorks. So nobody's ever seen this. A lot of secrecy. No one's going to see outside of, the DOD or whatever, are going to see the actual footage that they're taking. They have the camera up there. But they're still doing all, you start to get this weird feeling because they're still doing all the stuff, right? They're going through the motion of like planting the American flag and putting up the signs and all this stuff of like, I'm the United States of America. And it's like, well, if you're just up here for a top secret mission to set up some cameras, why are you going through all the fucking motions here? I'm not really sure. But, you start to have these power issues and their feeds getting interrupted. And they're riding around in their dang old little moon car. So they're not thinking a lot about it, but you keep getting this, the audio feed for their comm system keeps getting interrupted. They keep getting this like weird screechy feedback. You kind of get this setup that there are places on the sun that, on the moon that the sun never shines, which I think, fairly common knowledge, the whole dark side of the moon and all that stuff. But the camera starts to catch some like sketchy stuff, like some weird things happening, like especially in and around these craters where the moon, like, where no light will ever get to. I think they do a pretty good job of making you care about the cast. Like the kid accidentally taped over part of his dad's cassette tape where he had some music that he was bringing with him. And then you get the story about Nate and his whole like jalapeno dick and the cup of milk and stuff. And he burned his dick after he cut up some jalapenos. So, you get the idea that these guys, they like each other. They trust each other. I think, which makes you feel for him a little bit. The weird whole like radio things keep happening while they're sleeping. It sounds like some like animal screaming or something, but you don't really know. And then this camera outside picks up this image of like what appears to be a rock like moving on the surface of the moon. So something's going on with these dang rocks. They decide they're going to go to the backside of the moon, to get some, I don't know, samples, whatever the fuck the mission is. And they're not going to have any significant communications during this time. And then as they're getting like suited up, they find a dang old moon rock on the floor. And they're like, oh, that was one of our samples and it must have fell, or like they're confused about how, because this is, this scientific, methodology to everything they're doing. So they had to mark all these samples and everything. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is way beyond protocol for there to just be a dang old moon rock sitting on the floor of the little like, pod. So I should specify those two, John, Nate and Ben are in the little landing probe thing, right? That kind of separates from the main ship, and John is staying on the ship while they're down on the surface of the moon. So they're a little weirded out, but nothing serious. They start setting up all the shit that they have to set up, for the communications with Earth and the cameras and all this stuff. And they start to find these footprints. And they're like, what the fuck's going on with all these footprints? They're not our footprints. They follow them into the crater. And it looks like they're like walking around in circles. And whoever, made these footprints, they look like human footprints, kind of like theirs, but they're not theirs. They're a different style,
There's no tread on the boot. Spacesuit.
Yeah, it's a different type of dang different. Like they had Adidas spacesuits and the other guys had Puma spacesuits or whatever. But so they whoever this was disoriented, and they stumble upon a Russian like little landing probe, little landing ship, and a flag, and it's all fucked up, and the whole thing looks abandoned. They go in, it's all trashed. It has power, it has oxygen, but there's like blood everywhere. And then I really like this bit. They go down into the crater. Ben goes down into one of the craters where it's like, I guess exponentially colder. And he's using the flash function on this camera, which is obviously just single flashes, to see down into this dark crater. And he finds this like dead Russian cosmonaut in the crater. And at first it's just like his kind of fucked up face. And you don't know if it's a dang old like space ghoul or what at first, but then you realize it's a corpse. But it's a pretty cool little scare. They drag his ass up, and he has a rock in his pocket, and they don't really think a lot about it.
Hear yourself. He has a rock in his pocket.
He's got a rock in his pocket. Well, what you're starting to learn is like these rocks are getting places they ain't supposed to be, right?
This movie sucks. So
this is a fun, corny movie. I like it. You just had a dang old giant fucking rapist worm, and you can't get little dang old space rock monsters. You can't get on board with space rock monsters.
No, not as a serious threat. That's
come on.
I would get on board with rock monsters if this movie wasn't sold so seriously. Like it's because they do the whole found footage thing, and they set everything up so straight, and they're like, oh, these guys have families and we should feel bad, and like they're doing mostly like Blair Witch on the moon, and then they're like, but rocks, it's rocks, the rocks grow little arms and they come at you, and it's like
What? I don't understand why you're taking so much exception to this. We've talked about and admitted to liking things 1,000 times stupider than this.
I don't know what it is about this movie. This is the second time I've watched it. I saw it when it like around the time it first came out, and I didn't like it then. And just something about this film I can never get behind it. I don't know. It bugs me. It's just like, because okay, so in the scene in the crater where he's doing the flash photography thing. And I think it's partially because You're Next, which also came out in 2011, did the same thing. Of like, remember that scene in the basement where the camera flashes?
The flashes.
It feels like this device was used probably a lot in the back, because I think it might have even originated in one of those Texas Chainsaw remakes of using the flash photography to like light up a room. It just feels like a device that's been used over and over. They even reused it sort of in It's a Wonderful Knife most recently. Mm-hmm. So it's like a device I get so tired of. And so when he's doing it in the crater, and it's just like,
but it's in space.
I know,
it's
exactly.
It's a crater in space.
In space.
Different.
That's why it feels like it's like Leprechaun in space. Here's this device that we've used in a bunch of other horror movies, but now we've put a camera on the moon, and it's just like, ugh. I like so when the camera goes off, there's a little effect where the shadows of the rocks seem to be kind of vibrating, like, because they are kind of moving and they're vibrating. But I wish that I wish the answer to that wasn't that the rocks were alive. I wish the answer to that was something different than it's dang old rock spiders on the moon.
Well, listen, how many movies have you seen where the big bad knows what your worst fear is and uses it against you? Like, give me a fucking break. I mean, that's it. You were explaining it.
Yeah.
And every fucking movie has done that since then. You know what I mean? Like, how much more of a tropey thing could you come up with than, oh, the bad guy uses your worst fears against you? Like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't. This movie tries to overplay itself as smart, and it's not smart, though. That's the thing.
Does it?
I think so. Yes.
I think it's just a silly. I think it's just a silly fucking found footage space horror. Nothing seems particularly smart about it.
Well, no.
I guess stylized.
Yeah, they tried to play smart by being like, oh, we're part of this moon mission. We're the secret moon mission. Like, it's doing Blair Witch stuff. Because it even brings up, like, look up lunartruth.com for the real truth about the moon. You know?
Well, that was a Blair Witch thing. Yeah,
so
I get it.
It's trying to do all the Blair Witch stuff. And then, but then also, like, at the end, it like
the rocks are making the spiders gay.
Yeah. The moon rocks are making the cosmonauts gay. But then it has this thing at the end where, like, it's showing the footage and like all the things that how they covered up everything, and then it cuts to a clip of John F. Kennedy. It's like, who fucking cares? John Kennedy's been dead. He didn't have any, like, he barely had anything to do with the Apollo missions. He died.
Yeah. So I will say the ending. All right. Well, we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah. I didn't mean to jump that far ahead, but it's just like,
no. It seems like what you hate is that it takes itself seriously.
Yeah.
Which it definitely does.
Yeah.
There is no tongue in cheek. It's taking itself stone cold seriously. I should have mentioned also, this is a PG-13 horror movie. So it's not the scariest movie in the world by any means. It doesn't have much in the way of gore. But I think probably the fact that it's completely without, any type of like sex or really, cursing, really, they probably could get away with the PG-13. So they put it out there for that reason. But in any case, let's press on here. Some creepy shit happens while they're sleeping, like a video feed scrambles, something shakes the ship, like the flag gets stolen. So you're just getting a little bit more of like, something mysterious is happening up there on the moon, and it's fifth dimension. They suspect was a second cosmonaut, but the DOD guy who's like taking on communication is like, nah, dog, there was no other cosmonaut. So, that's not what's happening. But they seem to think maybe there's like some crazy ass cosmonaut up there. Finally, they're like, all right, we're going to bring you guys home. All right. And they're like, oh, cool. All right, let's just worry about this later once we're home safely. And then something smacks into the ship and like steals the camera and all this stuff. Right. Things are escalating. Communication gets quote unquote knocked out to Earth. And now like the oxygen is jeopardized. Shit's kind of going awry here a little bit. They hear that screaming again. And then the buggy, like the little dang old moon buggy outside, gets flipped over. Nate decides they're going to go investigate it. and try to fix the communication antenna, because they need that up and running if they're gonna go back and link up with the main ship and get out of here. So they go outside, and there's a bunch more tracks, and Nate's like, they kind of make the determination it's not human. And then the flag is shredded, the camera's gone, whatever. They're trying to fix it, but now there's a lot of tension because they're all scared about shit. Nate's outside, and he starts to say something is in his suit, and then it's in his helmet. And again, we spoiled it. It's a dang old little space crab or something like that. Little space spider, space crab crawling around in his helmet. Ben gets Nate back on board, but he's all fucked up, but he does survive. And John does get in touch with the guy's name's Tommy. That's like the guy they know back, he's from Houston. He's their contact back on Earth. And he's not really helpful regarding what's happening. Like John starts to, he doesn't have connection with Nate and Ben. He's starting to figure out like there's some sort of fucking weird stuff that they weren't told about what's going on. And like I said, the DOD's involved. Nate is like, doesn't want to admit what happened. And then Ben notices this wound on his chest, and this like rock is like under his skin. Ben gets it out. But now he's like starts to get infected. There's just some dang old weird moon infection happening on his chest.
Gets the moon madness, I guess. This is the other part. Like he does
get the moon madness. I like it.
It's just so disconnected. Like I don't know. Again, it just feels
what's disconnected. He gets moon madness. What don't you understand?
Rock, I don't know. It just feels hodgepodgey to me.
It's a space crab. The rocks are their shells. They're like little space hermit crabs.
Gotcha. It just feels. I don't know.
And they give you space madness. That's what happens. These things carry diseases. You ever go to like one of those surf shops down Myrtle Beach? Don't touch the hermit crabs. That give you fucking salmonella and shit. So he gets space salmonella, and Ben starts to get wise of what's going on here, and he starts to feel like they've been set up, like they're like kind of guinea pigs here that were sent up to see what happens, and they're trying to get in touch with everybody. Basically, at this point, they can't get in communication with John. They can't get in communication with Earth. They're running out of oxygen. He's pretty sure that, their mission is doomed at this point, because he thinks that they were just sent up there to basically see what happens to them. So he says, basically, we got to go back out on the surface, because we're going to try to make a break for the Russian ship, because it seemed like things were kind of intact there. Nate's not doing so good, so they end up going back, but Nate's wound is looking very not cool at this point. Like I said, it's all like black and fucked up. Houston's stalling at this point. They get in touch with him for a minute. Houston's stalling when talking to John. Nate kind of knows what happened. Ben's not fully ready to believe it yet. Nate starts talking about, hey, you got to leave me behind. I'm fucked. I got space salmonella on my guts. I'm fucked up. You go home. And he's doing pretty bad. He's doing pretty bad overall. His brain's getting taken over by damn moon bacteria or whatever.
Right. He's not. Yeah, I guess. It's just, I don't know. For everything we know about the moon, I guess this is why it's so. But I guess that's why it's so hard for me to buy in, because we know everything about the moon and how just generally
we think we know everything about the moon.
You're right. I didn't go to lunartruth.org, but everything we know about the moon is like, it's so uninhabitable and just like disinteresting. Like the moon really is fucking boring in itself, but that's the problem I have.
Some would say that the Earth is our moon.
Give him the finger.
From All Buck within. I hope you can see this because I'm doing it as hard as I can.
So when we go to other planets, like in Galaxy of Terror or Alien, and there's these crazy things set up, it's easier for me to buy into because it's like, oh yeah, it's a completely crazy world that like we've never been to. We don't know anything about it. We know everything about the moon, and the moon fucking sucks. That's why we don't go back to it.
Well, this is the joke. First of all, how dare you say the moon sucks? Second of all, I think that's the idea. Is we thought we did. We were very comfortable. We're just out there. Hey, let's go out and hit golf balls. Be cool about it. But actually, the moon's scary.
If the moon has a problem with what I'm saying, it can come down and suck my dick.
The best line ever. It's not even the. Some would say that the Earth is our moon, which is a funny line because one of them is a moon. But is right after that. Goes is. Some would say that the Earth is our moon, and then goes, "We're the moon." Right after it. So funny. So Nate's, like I said, he's very fucked right now. He's getting all aggressive. His eyes are getting all bloodshot. Like he's got full on, crazy ass space rot at this point. And he's like standing over Ben while he's sleeping and just doing creepy stuff. It's overall pretty not cool. Nate starts smashing the ship up because he claims he's not going to let them watch him die, because the whole idea is, hey, they sent him up here to see what happens. And now they're going to study, what happens, which is you're going to fucking die from space rot or whatever.
Yeah.
Ben decides, this is when Ben, I got ahead of myself. This is when Ben's like, no, we got to go to the Russian ship. We got to fuck off, get over there. We got to use their oxygen, maybe their communication system. And they're losing it, but he gets them suited up and they're driving the rover over. And then Nate pulls a just like jerk the wheel basically and flips it. And bails, breaks the rover. And at this point, I'm leaving Nate's ass behind. Like, I'm not fucking looking for him at all.
Right.
But he's looking for Nate. Ben's just kind of wandering around looking for Nate, trying to find the Russian probe lander thing. And his oxygen's getting low. And then Nate, he just kind of stumbles on Nate. Nate tries to convince Ben to leave him, and then he gets sucked down into this fucking crater. And then Ben goes after him again. I ain't going down into the crater, but he does. He goes after him and he's doing the flashlight thing again that you hate. And then you see a bunch of damn moon rock crab monsters just start popping out of the crater. And it's pretty sick. I thought it was kind of cool. There's like a fuckload of them. There's like hundreds of them down in there. Steve shaking his head. He doesn't like moon. He doesn't like moon crabs.
I'm not sold.
I liked moon crabs. Ben gets to the Russian little ship there and gets the communication working, and the DOD guys on the horn basically says, "You're fucked. Like, we ain't bringing you back. You've been you've been contaminated. Like, my dude, you're gonna die up on the moon." And then, he listens to the tape a bunch of his kid's voice. It's a whole big bummer. Finally, John gets in touch with him. Just when you think all's lost, John gets in touch with Ben, which a little predictable. You knew that was going to happen, right? You hadn't heard from John in a while, but they come up with a plan to get Ben back on board. But Nate shows up and he's got whacked out poo brains at this point. He's a full on fucking moon rage zombie. And and he starts attacking the ship. Fucking space crabs explode out of his eyes. Ben launches, but the DOD guy is on the phone with John, telling him like, you got to leave Ben behind. He's contaminated. And the DOD guy like basically gives John an ultimatum, says, you either cut off comm, or you either, let John like abort this, don't pick up Ben, or we're going to cut off communication and life support, and you're going to be fucked and you're not coming back either. And John basically tells him to suck butts. Like, I'm helping Ben no matter what.
Yeah.
And just then Ben gets swarmed by a bunch of moon crabs, and they just crash into the main ship, and everyone dies.
There's something so comical about this shot. I don't know what it is, but there's something so comical.
Just all the crabs around him, you mean?
Yeah, like he's lifting off from the moon, and you don't see any of the rocks, but then like at some point the rocks achieve more zero G, so they start floating up around him, and it's like, oh no, he's surrounded by rocks. Like it's just like
but they're crabs. Space moon crabs. And then the DoD just makes shit up but okay, so I did not understand this, but they basically said at the end that like, so that they brought back a bunch of samples and they were given to like foreign dignitaries as gifts.
Yeah.
Did you see what is that? And then it was like, but then they were stolen. It's like, what does that mean?
No, they just got up and walked off. Did they give them to them? They got up and walked off. So now they're free.
So the crabs are on Earth.
I know. It's a little confusing because they mention how they're all given to foreign dignitaries. So you're like, wait, are the people in charge? Do they have moon madness from the space crabs? No, they're just saying the crabs got up and walked off, and now like somewhere out in the world are moon crabs.
I kind of thought it was like the U.S. government was using moon crabs to assassinate foreign dignitaries.
Yeah, but they didn't say they killed the dignitaries. They just said they gave it to them.
No, they didn't. I know, but I wanted that to be the case.
It's what you want it to be, but it's really just like, no, the crabs got off and walked off into the, just they went away.
Yeah.
But they're somewhere in the world. Look up on zootertruth.org.
I'm not saying this is a masterpiece.
It isn't.
None of these movies that we talk about today are a masterpiece.
Galaxy of Terror is a masterpiece.
You have a fucked up sense of what masterpiece
in the hentai world.
In the hentai world, yes, it is like their genesis.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is a fun, quick, cheaply made, but like still, I thought quality, low budget, found footage space horror.
Yeah.
Like when the fuck you see found footage space horror? I just think it's a good, like one of those good, like solid, opportunistic horror movies that was made for probably next to fucking nothing.
Probably.
But is just engaging. And I'm not saying it's fantastic, but I was bought in. I was engaged. I didn't get bored like I did Galaxy of Terror 5 times. And they're just walking around through big anus holes going, I'm scaled.
Scaled at anus.
Actually, yeah. I was like engaged with this, and it's only like an hour and 20 minutes long. So I was like, oh, you just fly right through it.
Yeah. I don't know. I was bored.
Anyway.
I was incredibly bored with it. And I think
you've seen it before.
That's probably what the problem was. But even the first time around, I was kind of bored because it follows the same pattern of Blair Witch, of just like, we're doing a bunch of personal stuff up front, and like you get like a spooky noise here and there, and then just in the end, all the elements of the monster, for whatever reason, they just don't fit together in a piece for me, because you have the spooky screamy elements of the sound interference. They're fucking rocks, but they also induce moon madness, and it's like, there needs to be a unifying.
It's moon bacteria. They're moon crabs.
But the bacteria wouldn't exist. It's just like, I need the unifying, like I need something that unifies that all to make sense. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The rocks have to seem more intelligent to me rather than just like goofy spiders. I don't like, what do they feed on? What do they eat? What do they do? I don't know.
Your eyeballs.
Yeah, it just like, what do they do when we're not up there?
It's a mystery. What do they do when we're not up there? They only have to eat once every million years. They've been there for fucking ever, bro. They're just chilling.
But the moon,
they're chilling. They don't do anything. They're like one of those they're like one of those deep sea fucking fish that only have to eat once a year or something like that. Like that's all they do. They survive on shit floating past in space. And then an occasional cosmonaut, they munch them, and then they don't have to eat anything for several hundred more years.
The moon came from Earth. The moon.
Yeah, but people were a very small part of Earth's history.
I know, but so you're saying the rock monsters evolved after the moon was separated from the Earth.
Yeah. Well, they were probably on Earth, and then a couple of crabbies went up there, and then they evolved to stay on the moon. Now they're moon crabs.
This movie sucks.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a real stinker. Let's get to your fucking next one. This movie, this was the most overhyped thing I've ever seen. I couldn't believe that this movie was on so many people's like list of like all these great space movies. This sucked. This Dead Space movie sucks dick.
It does.
I'm saying it right off the top. Just to tell you where I stand, it was fucking boring. All the things you like about when you told me this was released with the movie or with the game, I was like, oh, that'll be cool because the game was awesome.
Yeah.
Like I only ever played the first Dead Space game, but it was great.
Yeah.
This takes all the things. It's like, all the things you love about the Dead Space game. Well, it's none of that. It's a bunch of fucking characters you don't give a shit about. There's no isolation.
No,
I'm getting ahead of myself.
No,
but
it's the origin.
Stunk on ice.
It's the origin story. It's what happens before the game. You shouldn't have expected the game, Brian. This happens before the game. It's how you get the game.
If I know nothing else about it besides the game, and I like the game, I would hope that they would know that they should make it to at least to the taste of somebody who liked the game.
I think they did make it to the taste of people who like the game because all it is it's an hour 15 minutes of violence. That's what the game is. That's what they made.
All right. I'll bite my tongue for now.
Hey, I'm not saying it's the best. Again, I picked this when we had our guest, not when it was going to the audience. Right. If it was going to the audience, I would have picked something different. I probably would have picked Sunshine.
I would be interested to see what Brian, if he was a fan of the game, what he would have thought about this, because I was a big fan of the game and thought this sucked ass. But anyway.
So this little film they put together, it's cool. It's cool for an animated film. Like... Especially 2008. It's directed by Chuck Patton, who he had previously like he started his career basically like as a comic book artist and then moved on to doing like animated shows, and he won an Emmy for the HBO Spawn TV series, if you remember that. It was back in the late 90s. So that's where that's where you can kind of see the style in this film. Like it looks a little bit like the HBO Spawn, but it also has a little bit of that Aeon Flux, if you remember that from MTV.
Yeah, that was so much better animated than this.
Oh yeah, like I'm not saying I don't even think Chuck Patton had anything to do with Aeon Flux. It just has they just pull a little bit of that stylization into it.
Yeah,
like it's like
sure,
it's like 1/8 Aeon Flux. Aeon Flux is like off the fucking charts with the animation and the stylization. Mm-hmm. But I
think the animation actually was mostly bad in this, like cheaply done. You know what I mean? Like choppy, and I don't know a lot about animation, but this like the animation, like the movements were like choppy, and the character designs were like. Everyone looked like stretched out. I understand that's a stylistic decision, but they all look like it looked like the Planeteers got like stretched out.
So I think that's a symptom of like, one, it's 2008. So there actually isn't like a lot of, outside of the big studios, there isn't like a lot of strong animation going on. It's, a lot more people are doing CGI. And like, the 3D animation, not a whole lot of people are doing 2D animation. I think DC is maybe starting up kind of like their extended universe animation, which is like probably the best 2D animation you'll find around, or at least for a time. I think it looks like shit nowadays. But the other side of that is like a lot of people were adopting this motion comic style because it was so cheap and easy to make. So I think this kind of falls into the in between of that. Like, it's a little herky jerky, it's a little choppy, but it still feels more like an animated thing. The other side of that is, I don't know how fast this was put together, but it was put together obviously pretty quickly because it came out in conjunction, like with the game. Like I think within the same year, I think. So,
do you know what the characters reminded me of?
What's that?
Do you remember when they did? It might have been 1 season, 2 seasons where they did that Clerks animated show.
See, even the animation on that's much better.
It is, but the character designs, I guess what I mean, like the stretched out kind of character designs.
Yeah, they're a little stretched out,
really weird, angular, stretched out.
Mm-hmm. They also have like the thick, fat black lines as outlines. Not on this, but on Clerks they did. Yeah, Clerks was a great show for 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I ever watched it, to be honest with you, but
yeah, go back and watch it. You can find it in places. It's fucking hilarious. But yeah, so the story is basically we start ahead of the events of the first game, and we start off with this distress call from Alyssa Vincent, who is the chief security officer on the Ishimura, which is the famous ship that you plot around on during the first game.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically says, hey, everybody's dead, and don't come here and blow everything up. And we think, this thing we pulled off the planet is made everybody crazy and go kill everybody. So don't come here because bad here. Everybody bad here.
Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
But then, of course, obviously you get there because there's a game. And then there's 2 sequels to that game. So a lot of stuff happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this is basically just to fill out more of the backstory of like these markers. And the game is obviously very inspired by like, Alien and Event Horizon and then zombie films, because you have this magical marker, and there are a series of markers that exist across the galaxy. And what they do is they reanimate dead tissue. And then once they get enough dead tissue, they all come together and they form a zombie moon. And the zombie moon also travels around making more markers and then consuming people. It's a definite life cycle that you get.
Yeah. And there's kind of a side story that is like an environmental kind of horror thing, because the way these are discovered, at least where the way this one's discovered, is via like mining, quote unquote, dead planets for resources.
Right.
So it's like, hey, you've opened up this Pandora's box through your, greed, of a resource pillaging.
Yeah. Yeah. So they open the Pandora's box of, we found this mining site, and which is kind of similar to like the original Alien. We went to this site and found this thing, and then, there's an egg, and now we have a monster on board. Yeah. So it's similar to that. But there's a deeper backstory of like, there's an old marker that exists on Earth, and it's found by a guy, and he creates the Church of the Unitologists because they're all worshiping this thing. And it's like, it's a cult and it's a death cult, but they do their best to not like let people in. It's kind of like Scientology in that way. They're not letting people in on the hook. And the hook is that we all die and become a zombie flesh moon.
Yeah, they kind of like it. I mean, probably the one part of this, like, that I did not remember from the game. I don't even know if it's in the first game. It probably is. I just don't remember it because it was so long ago. Was the whole unitologist thing. Yeah. I did like that storyline. Yeah. Even though none of the characters were worth a shit. Like, I liked that there was this weird group of people that are like, no, this is a good thing. or at least they accept it.
Right. We're into it. We want it.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that is like, it is in the first game. I don't know that it's that expanded upon, and like this movie helps expand on that. I'm pretty sure it's the second game that really, really like fleshes out the unitologists. But I think like if you're going through the first game, you can find audio logs from characters that are in this movie, especially the captain, who is a unitologist, and then Dr. Kine. He is kind of like he's an anti-unitologist, and he's the one that's like trying to destroy the planet and destroy the marker. And like they both show up in this film. The actor who plays Dr. Kine in this film is also the same voice actor from the game. So you get that you get that little connective tissue. His name's Keith Zarabajaka, but the guy who plays the captain in the game is not the same one, because the guy who plays the captain in this movie is Jim Cummings, also known as Winnie the Pooh.
And Darkwing Duck.
And a lot of things.
And a lot of things. Yeah, he's one of the most like prolific voice actors of all time.
Yeah. After we get this discovery of the marker by the mining crew, the Ishimura comes up and pulls it up from the planet, and it's just like, it's some of the most like destructive strip mining, because they just take a chunk out of the planet and then raise it up from the planet. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
There's like, they're under the impression like this planet is like a wasteland. It's dead. And we're just going to literally, take it's almost like punching a hole punch, and you just take out big chunks of it.
It's like slicing off a piece of cake. You're like, this is mine now.
Yeah.
Take this.
Yeah.
But like, as they're doing that, you're getting reports from the planet. They're like, hey, everybody's going crazy down here, but security's got it under control. It's cool. Don't worry about it. And then they're like, okay, well, Ishimura, here we come. We're going to take that piece of planet with us. Bye. But then everybody on the Ishimura starts to go crazy, and people on the planet start killing each other, and then some people try to escape. I think the scene where the guy like finds his wife and she fucking almost cuts her entire head off with the with the space mining axe or whatever it is. Like, that's pretty cool. It's
that was one of two cool scenes in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's disturbing imagery, and it's a good setup to like, oh, people really have the moon madness. So
yeah.
They too have.
People have moon madness. You're pro moon madness now.
Well, yeah, because this is not our moon. This is different. This is a different planet. So like, this is our moon is fucking boring.
Some would say that the Earth is our moon. Sorry, I'm gonna keep saying that 100 times.
Our planet's fucking boring. This is why you have to go to other planets. Then I'm on board.
I see. Then you're good.
Yeah. Then I'm good. But yeah, that's a cool scene. And then the guy escapes with his wife's dead body, but it reanimates and attacks him on his re-entry to the Ishimura. And this is where you get, the monsters introduced onto the Ishimura. And this, now here's your backstory, because now the monsters go fucking crazy and they attack everybody. It's
so if this was 15 minutes long and that's all it showed, and it just showed you that intro and like the origin of how they got on the Ishimura and how they started, okay, that would have been cool. But now we have to sit through an hour more of just the same shit happening over and over and over again. Dumb characters, the whole, predictable plot of basically like find a dangerous alien thing. You got the wily, cantankerous veteran that doesn't like it one bit. And then you got the naive, like arrogant leaders that are like, this is an order. And then the aliens invade and there's chaos. And then only one person can get them out of this mess. And it's the person that didn't want them to do it in the first place. And it's like every cop movie, every space movie,
Yeah, well, it's inspired by all these other space movies.
Inspired.
I look at Galaxy of Terror.
Except for it has swears and ladies' bras. So it's adult.
And it has penis. It has a penis in it too.
It has one floppy wiener. Yeah.
I look at it as Galaxy of Terror is pre-Event Horizon, and then this is post-Event Horizon. Because like Galaxy of Terror has that element of like your fears come alive, which is in Event Horizon. And then this is, like, oh, it's a real bloody spaceship full of monsters, which is post Event Horizon. Takes the wrong message.
It's haunted house in space. Yeah. Like if your other movie was slasher in space, this is haunted house in space.
I mean, this is basically,
and they do that
Terrifier in space, because it's just the most gruesome fucking ways to die of people getting cut in half, people, like extreme just body destruction in various ways. Like they
it's just 2008 edgelord vibes.
Yeah, they set out
the whole way through.
They set out to make the most violent, disgusting fucking animated film they could, and then they did it. Like, it's not smart, it's not
really, it's not even that. I thought it was going to be way more brutal, to be honest with you. Like, I've watched 1,000 anime, like I've watched so much anime that's so much more brutal.
Well, this isn't for the anime crowd. This isn't for, like, if you've watched like a bunch of Wicked City and what the fuck, like Ninja Scroll is way the fuck over the top compared to this, but this isn't for them. This is for fucking players of EA games. This is for dum-dums.
This is 13-year-old 2008 edgelords.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yeah,
but it's still
listening to Buck Cherry or whatever.
But it's at least short, and it gives you a little bit of lore.
It's at least short.
Yeah,
that is its biggest selling point.
Yeah, I never would have even considered this if this was close to an hour and a half. It's not, though. It's under 75 minutes, and that's fine.
Yeah,
you get a bunch. You get a bunch of goofy. You get all the tropes. Sure, is it tropey? Absolutely. But you get a bunch of fun little violence. You get a little backstory to your fun game that's also full of violence, and then you have little haunted house elements, and that's it. You have a time.
There's some cool gore imagery and kind of body horror stuff, which is the most memorable part of the game visually, but they missed the mark on what was the best part of the game by far, which was the tension. And they definitely missed the whole sense of isolation thing. There's always 20 people on screen. Right. That's what made the game so scary to play, is you were by yourself. You knew nothing. You were isolated, and the tension was like ramped up. And frankly, like, that's the isolation thing is what, like, name a good space horror, space thriller, sci-fi horror. It's usually isolation. You know what I mean? And there is no sense of isolation in this. There's a whole team of dildos we don't care about squawking at each other for saying the F-U-C-K word over and over and over again.
They do a cuss.
They do so many cusses. Just badass cuss words, saying the F-U-C-K word. The only other scene that's I really was like, oh, that was cool, was when the captain gets it accidentally. And it's not even the fucking monsters. It was a full-on accident.
Right, yeah. Well, I think that had to be a thing where they kept in line with the game, because I'm pretty sure you find that out in an audio log or something from or just a meeting up with Kine at some point.
Pick up.
Yeah. So they had to keep that in there. But like, it is kind of a cool scene, because it's also built around that idea of the unitologists, being into what is happening. Like, they were trying to get, I assume they were trying to get the marker back to Earth, but the captain is of the mind of like, oh, even if we don't get it back to Earth, if we can still get, to birth a zombie moon from, just ripping this thing up and bringing a bunch of people near it, that's cool too. We're fine with that. So but then he dies from like, he has the fucking marker madness, and tries to attack the doctor, and then the doctor winds up accidentally putting a sedative needle all the way through his head, which, hey, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, the character, like the game was very realistic. You know what I mean in terms of design.
Mhm.
You know, it was meant to be like ultra realistic. You know, the character designs, you know, the monsters and stuff were wacky, but like the humans just looked like humans.
Right.
This has that, you know, fucking Teen Titan looking bullshit where it's like there's one guy who's huge and his forearm is bigger than every other else person's body, and then you get the like fucking cyberpunk girl, and it just takes away like that whole like gritty realism thing, I guess, is what made the game, I think, really special, and they just lost that by just I don't know.
Yeah.
All the characters suck except for the wacky captain, unit whateverologist captain.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't think they suck. I just think they're all tropey. I know what you're saying about like how like the body proportions are all stylized to hell, and you know that's not something you get in the games. But I don't know. Yeah. The one character who's also the unitologist, the Sam Irons, who like he's the big guy with the chainsaw, and he's the engineer that's say
he's not only is he the big guy, he's the big like Native American guy from, you know, that archetypical character of like the big strong Native American guy who's like kind of empathetic and kind of a softie but mysterious.
Yeah, mysterious. But he's also like a unitologist, and like he seems to struggle. Like his character has like a little bit of an arc of like struggling with the unitologist belief system because he's seeing how it's killing everybody around him. But then in the end, when it's time for him to die, he accepts it as well. Like he's all in.
Yeah, when the little yip yips come to get him, he's just like little flying yip yip guys are like, he's like, I give you my flesh. You know, he does the whole like prayer or whatever the fuck it was supposed to be. But
yeah. So I don't know.
I did like when the cyberpunk girl gets Art the Clown.
Yeah,
she gets full on Art the Clown. Yeah.
Played by Kelly Hu.
That was all right.
Yeah, Kelly Hu from the Mummy and the X-Men series.
I don't know if we're ready to talk about the ending, but there was a particular part that annoyed the living shit out of me.
Sure. What is it? What bothered you about the ending outside of everything, apparently?
The Twinkle Twinkle song, too.
Oh, yeah.
That was so obnoxious. And it was just like, again, that just reeked of 2008 edgelord. Like, it's a bleak ending. We get it. Like, I think the only thing that would have made it more predictably 2008 is if they would have brought on like that Gary Jules version of Mad World.
Oh yeah.
Like played it at the end.
I think that was included. The Twinkle Twinkle Little Star was included because it was also in the marketing for the game.
Okay.
I think the original commercials for the game had that as well. So like they included it as like, remember you saw that and then you see this and now just put it all together in your brain and you're entertained.
Yeah.
You get it.
Even though this has almost nothing to do with the game. I liked, I also did appreciate that all the necromorphs like clothes and rags that were part of, you know, when they exploded out of their body and grew new appendages and everything, they always like stayed intact enough to just like cover their privates. I do appreciate that because I didn't want to see any boobies or anything.
Well, you see, Brian, when you become a necromorph, you no longer have need for your genitals, so those actually suck back into your body, so it gives extra cloth.
Oh,
where
no butts. Yeah. It gives extra cloth. I get it.
So like, whereas arms and stuff are exploding out of your stomach, you know, your dick and balls are going back inside, so you get extra cloth, and that's why it doesn't rip. It's a reverse Hulk. It's reverse hulking.
It's reverse hulking, and the clothes get affected in a reverse hulking way. I gotcha. This sucked. It's not good. I did not like it.
Dan says that makes as much sense as rock crabs on the moon.
Makes way less sense than rock crabs on the moon. The rocks is their shells.
How does it scream? How does the rock crab scream when it gets squished? Doesn't make any sense.
How does a lobster scream when you put him in a pot? I don't know. I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson over here.
It doesn't. Just whistles out of holes because
right.
it gets hot in the holes.
Yeah. Well, that's all that was happening there, too. Whistling out of their holes.
No, because it wasn't getting heat. It got hit with a hammer. That doesn't make any sense.
I know. Yeah, they have little crab vocal cords. Yeah. That's how they communicate on the moon. All right. Anything else to say about this dog shit?
I think it's a good bit of fun. It's short, and then it might make you go.
Good bit of fun.
It might make you go play the games as well. And then they just made the remake of the first one, so go play that.
Yeah, I would suggest that. Skip this, play the game. It's awesome. All right. 3 down, 1 to go here. I am going to talk about 2017's Life. Again, this was originally Brian, our guest Brian's pick. And like I said, I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty fun. Daniel Espinosa directed it. Daniel Espinosa. He is known for a variety of things, most notably recently Morbius, but decent amount of directorial credits here. I right off the top of my head, nothing jumps out at me as like something I'm trying to think something I know much about.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I've seen Safe House with Ryan Reynolds and
sounds familiar.
And Denzel Washington. That seems like something I would watch because I like Denzel in his gunplay movies.
Child 44.
Yeah.
Morbius, I think, is the only thing I saw from him. Which
oh wow, you saw Morbius? That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was a Tubi, just a hey, it's on Tubi kind of watch, and it just popped up next. Like I'm watching a movie right now called Merlin. I don't know what it is. Just popped up next on Tubi. But yeah, I'm not terrifically familiar with his directorial portfolio here, but wild that he got such a crazy cast here. And again, 2017, not that far back. We've got, the biggest, not I want to say the biggest star, but the star of the movie. Jake Gyllenhaal as David. You've got a Ryan Reynolds as Rory. You have Rebecca Ferguson as Miranda. Hiroyuki Sanada as Sho. And then Arion Bakare as Hugh. That's kind of the main cast. So that's the right amount of people to have on a ship. There are other people that pop up here and there, whatever. But this is primarily the bulk of the cast, right? So Jake Gyllenhaal, or David, is a doctor. He's kind of the onboard doctor, and he's been up there for a long ass time. And you kind of get this idea he likes it up there. He likes the isolation. He likes to be able to like separate himself from Earth problems and just kind of live up there at this giant, just big international space station is where this all is existing. Ryan Reynolds is kind of the hot shot, kind of. I don't know if he's a commander. I forget exactly what his role is.
I thought he was like an engineer because he goes on so much about like his
engineer,
his blue collar past, and then he's like, he's either an engineer
fixing
or a pilot.
Shit.
Yeah,
yeah, I think you're right, engineer, because he's always talking about fixing shit. Rebecca Ferguson as Miranda, she's kind of the she's kind of the security protocol person, I guess. There might be a better word for that. Sho, I think, is like the tech guy / pilot.
Yeah.
And then Hugh is the scientist, like the biologist who's up here to study all this stuff on their they had just gotten some samples back on this mission from Mars. So they have some samples from Mars that are, promising in some capacity. And they feel like they're, hopefully going to find the first signs of life on Mars. It does a great job of making you care about the characters, not unlike Apollo 18. I would say perhaps even more so, because they all really like love and respect each other and care about each other's work, even if they're like, kind of busting each other's balls a lot. You don't get a bunch of like sob stories and shit, or like a bunch of like over-explained backstory, but you just see that they care about each other and respect each other.
Even the one story that's meant to like invoke like a just like an easy pathos is Hugh, who like he's paralyzed from the waist down, and so like
he looks like he has some sort of like degenerative like muscle disease or something. Like his legs are very thin. And he is at home, when they're in this zero gravity environment. So he's, popping around everywhere. And you don't realize at first that that's the case. But on Earth, he would have been in a wheelchair. Yeah.
He would have been confined to a wheelchair. But now he gets to have a bit of freedom up in space, which, that's like a fun thing to like. It's a fun idea to introduce, because they also do. One of the things I like about this movie is like they do a really good job with the zero G, like traversal and everything.
They really do.
And like not a lot of films do it, but this film like does it all the time. So like, it's pretty well done. I enjoy that. I'm thinking like in comparison to the film ISS, which came out last year, which is also about the International Space Station. And it's like a thriller. It's not as good as this movie, and they just, I don't know. It doesn't do things as well as this movie does. It's kind of like,
it was really impressive the way like it's shot well. Obviously, there's a lot of CGI, but just the way that they move really fluidly by just like pulling themselves like around all the different areas to grip on in the ship, and like the camera's constantly switching directions. I imagine that would be quite complicated. They do a good job with it. So flash forward a little bit, they've got this sample. There's this kind of exciting thing at the beginning where Rory, you kind of get the idea he's like the cowboy of the group. They have this capsule that they're retrieving that has these samples on it, and getting these samples on board is like the most important thing. There's basically the sequence where the capsule is potentially going to be lost, but then Rory goes out like manually and risks his life to like fire these thrusters to capture this capsule and bringing it back on board. So there's this little bit of and you don't know, is it like, hey, Ryan Reynolds, pretty big star. Did they bring it? And less so in 2017, but still pretty big star. And so are they gonna? Is he going to be one of the guys they bring on that kill him off right off the bat? But they don't. And he, you get the idea that like, hey, these guys they care a lot about this mission. And I think that kind of sets the scene for, some of the decisions they make down the road. They get the sample and they're going to take it to this quarantine lab so they can do some experiments, because they found this dormant little cell. They don't know what it is. It's a bacteria. Is it some sort of little unicellular organism? And Hugh's going to go into this contamination lab, or this quarantine lab, and figure it out. So he revives the cell by doing all types of science stuff on it, right? Giving it some yummies to eat, raising the temperature, and basically produces this like ideal environment for this little cell to like regenerate. And it does. And then, so they're all super happy because they've proved there's life beyond Earth, right? But it starts to quickly grow, and this organism is like unlike nothing they've ever seen. They're broadcasting back down to Earth. It's a huge thing all over the world. It's like super big news.
They would never do this.
And
they would never take over Times Square to have some dumb little girl give it a school name.
Yeah, they name it after her school, which was the Calvin Coolidge Elementary School. So they named the it's kind of like how we name fucking whales at SeaWorld or snowplows,
right.
In the winter. But they name it Calvin. It's just a little hunk of cells. Now you start to get a little bit about like David has been up there for like a year and a half, and his muscles like starting to atrophy, and he's got like radiation, like he's got too much radiation, and he like doesn't care because he just kind of doesn't want to go back to Earth. You get that feeling.
You also learned that he was a medic in the army, which is
military medic.
Yeah, which is probably why he doesn't want to go back to Earth, because like not that they would re-enlist him, but just like he's been around enough horrors of people that he doesn't want to see any more horrors of people.
Yeah, he kind of they suggest he's got, they don't really come out and say it, but he's got either PTSD or just overall some pretty traumatic experiences in the military. You start to learn more about Calvin and like all the wacky stuff he can do and how like advanced this little organism is, and like every one of his cells can do like everything, like sensory, it's a muscle, it's a neuron, it's all this stuff. And Calvin starts to grow and like form these little appendages, like little arms and kind of grabby things, and starts to very clearly be interacting with Hugh. And then they fuck up something in the lab, and it results in them, they think they kill Calvin. And Hugh's starting to get a little weird with Calvin. Like he's starting to develop like an attachment to him. And Katrina, which was like the commander, was getting pretty sketched out by the whole thing, and is kind of happy because they were like, well, Calvin, like what was going to happen is going to keep growing. They're not really sure. Hugh does revive Calvin with these like little electric shocks. And Calvin immediately, he's Frankenstein Calvin now. So he got brought back to life, and they put a criminal brain in him. Apparently, I don't know, but he becomes very hostile. He starts attacking.
And now fire bad.
Yeah, now fire bad. Now he throws a little girl in the pond. He attacks.
Kind of does.
Yeah, I guess he kind of does. But the pond is in her helmet.
Yeah,
but he becomes he attacks Hugh. He fucks up his hand, like crushes his hand, because he's like got one of those little things where it's these little like gloves on the inside of like it almost looks like a little incubator,
It's the Homer Simpson pick up the radiation rod gloves.
It is. It's exactly what it is. And Calvin ends up getting this little tool that he had in there, and ends up puncturing a hole in the gloves and escaping and into the lab. And he goes and destroys this rat, and you start to see that Calvin is like eating, right?
Yeah.
And he's growing in size, and Hugh is like passed out because his hand's all crushed right in there, and Rory decides he's going to cowboy it up and go in and rescue Hugh because they're buddies. He goes in
before
go ahead.
Before Rory goes in there though, they have it running around the lab, and this is the first time I've seen this movie. I wasn't sure if I was on board yet. Like I like when he crushed his hand, that's like actually a wild effect where it just slops out of the glove. That was pretty fucking gross. But then the way it punctures the glove and escapes and runs around the lab, something about it just had like this real Looney Tunes, like Roadrunner-esque type thing of just like, beep, beep, here I go. And then like, just like back and forth across the lab. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm on board with this yet.
It was darting around. It gave me some like Flubber vibes a little bit. But yeah, it was just kind of bouncing around all over the place. And like looking for ways to escape. And you could tell it's like intelligent because it just used a tool a second ago. And then when Rory goes in there, Calvin launches onto Rory's leg. And then Jake Gyllenhaal, which was David, ends up locking Rory in the room, basically to keep Calvin like contained. And then Rory's like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker." And he pulls out this he basically makes a little flamethrower, I guess, out of just some like tools that are in there. That's a thing you can do, I guess.
Which is like a huge no-no in space.
You would think so. It's just oxygen tanks everywhere.
Yeah.
But he just starts trying to burn it up. Doesn't work. It ends up going in a pretty brutal scene, goes into Rory's mouth and just like, you don't see it, of course, but you assume it's just like squeezing all his guts up and mushing him up on the inside. And then blood's all coming out of his mouth. He's all gooned up, and they all have to watch Rory die. And then when it comes out of Rory, it's even bigger. So you just assume it just ate all his guts, right? It's eating blood, it's eating guts. It's like obviously consuming,
it's into everything.
It just,
I'll say this is the one thing, and it's just like not a knock against this movie because I can't think of any movie, but like 0G blood looks terrible.
It looks bad, and they try to do this thing where they focus past it. You know what I mean? So it's like, like not in the forefront. So you don't notice how bad it looks, but it looks bad.
Yeah. It's just like, I can't think of a single movie that's ever done it well. Cause like, it's something that came up in my mind watching that ISS movie. They have like CGI blood in that's in 0G. And I'm just like, don't show it. Put it on something. Put it on a shirt. Don't put it in a suit. I don't want to see this.
The thing that killed me a little bit about this was when Rory is trying to kill him with the homemade flamethrower. He's just screaming, and I was like, "What are you, fucking Duke Nukem? Like, what do you think you're doing right now?" I can say my least favorite character for sure is Ryan Reynolds' character, which is Rory, because of dumb shit like that, but also like Ryan Reynolds is kind of unbearable as a character in here. Like, he's essentially if like Peter Venkman wasn't funny at all.
Yeah.
That's kind of his character. And you also know he's going to 100% die. Like, it's for sure he's going to die because of just the nature of his character. It's just everything's pointing to the fact that he's going to fucking die.
Yeah, because he starts off doing risky behaviors. That's how he starts the movie. So it's not like, even though he's a big name in the film, it's not like Deep Blue Sea when Samuel L. Jackson dies. It's pretty telegraphed that he's going to die because he's doing cowboy shit. And cowboys get killed in space. They don't belong up there.
Cowboys don't belong in space. That's Willie Nelson's song. Calvin ends up like escaping through this little vent, and then and Hugh's basically like he doesn't have there's not enough, he has to breathe air, right? He apparently needs oxygen, and like that hasn't been on Mars for a long time, so that's what's kept him dormant. So like this is a species that is from when Mars was inhabitable, and 2, it most likely could survive on Earth as well. And I should say at this point, it kind of looks in some ways as like a baby version of the monster from Nope. Like I kind of like to imagine that it grew up to be that, and then flew like intergalactically on its own. But so their communication gets cut off. Katrina goes out to like fix the antenna. I feel like every space movie, somebody's got to go fix the antenna, I guess. Calvin attacks her outside and gets into her like spacesuit and like ruptures the coolant system or something. And all the liquid starts going into her helmet. And there's a really tense scene of her having to like do the whole like spacewalk and like basically jump from one part of the space station to the exterior of the other part of the space station while she's drowning in the coolant in her own helmet, while she's being, attacked and chased by Calvin outside the space station. Then ultimately, she gets to the window and David's trying to let her in and, trying to talk her through how to open the door where she can't see. And you keep getting these little POVs from inside her helmet. It's like obviously terrifying and panic inducing, but then you realize that she's actually trying to keep the door closed because she's like, no, I'm fucked. And I don't want that dang old space octopus or whatever the fuck it is to get in. And then, basically David watches her like drown in her spacesuit, basically.
Yeah. I didn't like, I like the setup to this scene, but I feel like at some point she should have just like, logically, she should have just like kicked off the space station and you took her and Calvin into deep space with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would have been probably ideal scenario. I get the feeling in that moment when you are drowning and being attacked by a space octopus and you're in space, like you might not be doing your best thinking in that moment.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But if she has the thinking and like the ability and wherewithal to keep the door closed and like reverse the pull and everything on opening the door, I don't know. At some point, just grab the octopus while you still have the function in your body. Grab the space starfish and hold on to it, and then kick off the space station and go away. You know,
yeah.
Like even if she did that, and then David made that Event Horizon jump through the airlock and grabbed her and pulled her back.
Yeah.
I would be more okay with that than just like hanging out until you die and then the monster jumps off your body back onto the space station.
Yeah. Ultimately, she was pretty ineffective. But yeah, I mean, Calvin's trying to get back inside. So he tries to get in through the thrusters. So they try to like blast him with the thrusters, but all that does is just waste all their fuel. And then, there's this brief moment where the ship like enters into decaying orbit, which I guess will, it's plummeting towards Earth. So they're like, oh, it's going to get into the atmosphere and burn up. But Show basically says they need to use the rest of the fuel to get back into safe orbit. But that would make Calvin, be able to get back into the space station. So the crew, they kind of plan to seal themselves into this one little area and then vent all the atmosphere, like all the oxygen from the rest of the space station, just like basically suffocating Calvin, hopefully. But then Hugh just has a straight up heart attack and dies. You were like, oh, he's going to survive and all this stuff, but he's just doing bad. And you're like, oh, well, maybe he wasn't doing so good. He just has a heart attack and dies. But then you realize that he was on Hugh's leg, and you were like, how did he get on Hugh's leg? Like, no one noticed, but he just sneaks right up on him.
It makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense that Hugh doesn't feel it because he doesn't have the feeling below his waist. But the rest of us are like, oh, we never saw him come back in. Like,
I just like to imagine him like tiptoeing.
Yeah, exactly.
Just tiptoeing up when no one's watching. So Hugh, like I said, Hugh is dead. And you didn't realize that he's been eaten on Hugh's leg. So now he's pretty big, right? He's gotten even bigger, and he's got kind of like a little like maw kind of now. It looks like almost, I don't know. It looks like a cross between like some sort of deep sea and like insect kind of face to it, but it's all this like jellyish type of, like, it doesn't have bones or an exoskeleton or anything.
It looks like the Cloverfield face.
A little bit. Yeah.
And this is kind of where I got off board with the monster design. I still like the movie, but like they should have just kept it as like a weird, almost a weird jellyfish, or
just an amorphous thing that just blobby. Yeah, I agree. I started liking it less after it. Yeah, I started liking it less after it had like a head, like a designated head.
Yeah.
Anyway, Calvin goes after everybody. Show ends up getting into one of the little sleeping pods, and Calvin's trying to get in, whatever. David and Miranda end up and Hugh, who's dead. They end up using Hugh to like bait Calvin away from where Show is, and then trap it into the spot where they can suck all the oxygen out, which is, successful at first. But then they realize that this like rescue team has showed up, And as a fail safe, they had planned. And the only reason they know this is because Miranda made this protocol. Is they're like, oh, they're coming to rescue us. That's no good. Like then Calvin's gonna fuck them up too. But then she's like, no, they're actually here to just push the whole space station into deep space, like that, to just isolate us. And they're like, oh, bummer.
It's a great idea. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand why they manned it. Just shoot the capsule up and then have it push and never speak of them again.
Yeah, see you later. Whoopsie. Just brush them under the rug of deep space.
I don't know why they had to load up 2 Russians in it to go push them.
They got it. Somebody's got to drive. Somebody's got to navigate. Somebody's got to handle the tunes. But the capsule does dock with the space station, starts pushing it out. And Show thinks it's a rescue. And we didn't mention Show has a brand new baby, so that the baby was born when they were on this mission. So he really doubly wants to get home because he wants to, obviously not die, but also wants to see his kids. So Show leaves thinking it's a rescue mission and rushes over to board this ship. And he opens the hatch and Calvin is there and fucks him up and the crew of that other ship. So they try to save Show, meaning David and Miranda. But there's like a docking breach. So basically the capsule is detaching and crashing into their ship. So Dave and Miranda are the only survivors. There's this whole big sequence with Show. They're trying to save him, but then he just gets jacked against the wall by Calvin. And they basically learn that at this point they're the only survivors and they're going back into decaying orbit, and they're like, hey, Calvin might actually be able to survive re-entry, but we couldn't. So David says, hey, there's 2 escape pods. I'm going to lure Calvin into one and just blast off into deep space and just peace out with Calvin. And then Miranda, you go and escape back to Earth in the other one. So David leads Calvin into the pod and launches into space. And Miranda does the same thing, but she's going towards Earth. And one of the pods gets hit by, so you see the 2 pods like out in space, and one of them gets hit by some debris and gets knocked off course. And then you see it trying to like course correct. And then you're seeing this from the exterior. You don't know which pod is which, but then inside you see David, getting attacked by Calvin, and he's like struggling to, pilot the pod out into deep space, and Calvin's like grabbing his hand. And then the pod that's going to Earth, successfully, parachutes down, lands in the water. I think it says it's in like Vietnam, and there's a couple of fishermen there. And
it lands in a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, pretty much. And they kind of paddle their boat over to the pod. And then meanwhile, so you're like, oh, Miranda survived. Great. This is going to be wonderful. She's going to be saved. And then you see Miranda just like spinning into space and screaming and everything going terrible. And you realize that Miranda is the one who's getting launched into deep space. And you're like, oh, no, that's no good. So now the boat's approaching it, is a little bit more ominous. And they go up and they see that David is in there. He's still alive, but like Calvin is like kind of, I don't know, spread all over the inside of the pod in some capacity. Yeah. Like almost like I would assume it assumed that form to like make
brace
sure
itself.
Yeah, that
for impact.
Yeah, I guess. And David's like, don't open it. Of course, they don't speak English. So he's trying to get them not open it. But the fishermen open the door, and then some other boats pull up. And, basically Calvin survived and got to Earth, and the Earth's fucked.
Yeah.
So again, another bleak, real feel good ending on this one, too.
I liked the ending because it actually, they actually boomed me.
Oh, yeah.
with the Silence of the Lambs editing is what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Is, they Silence of the Lambs, they make you think Clarice is at the house of the Clarice is at the house of the killer and the FBI is at the house of the killer, but no, they're in two separate places.
Yep.
That's the editing boom. And so like this one got me because it's the rest of the movie is so formulaic.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't for a second believe that they would go the route, with this bleak ass ending. So they did get me with that.
I thought it was going to be a happy little ending.
Yeah, but it does look like the beginning of a big Godzilla movie because it's like this alien parachuting into Southeast Asia, and then like from there you can easily imagine that Calvin starts eating a bunch of people and then like growing bigger in size, and that pisses Godzilla off because something has invaded his territory.
Well, I also like when they do the big reveal that Calvin was a Dilophosaurus all the time.
Yeah,
because he does the whole like, his little weird hood pops up and he like hisses at David. I was like, oh Jesus Christ! I actually kind of thought that was fucking lame, but that probably doesn't help my cause. But I thought the Dilophosaurus reveal was dumb. Anyway, I liked it. I liked it more than I thought it was going to. Same thing. I thought it was going to be a happy little ending, but it was super bleak and decent performances overall. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is great. Ryan Reynolds was unbearable, and he can be like that sometimes. Like overall like Ryan Reynolds, but he can occasionally be unbearable. And I think he did, I don't think it was his performance as much as, the way it was written. I think everybody else was pretty good. Hugh, Miranda was okay. But yeah, overall, I thought it was.
Yeah,
I thought it was. Pretty,
they're all mostly
fun.
Believable, and it's fine. There's one line delivery by Jake Gyllenhaal that felt the realest to me. Is just I forget what happens, but like something goes wrong, or the ship gets. It might have been when the Soyuz is connecting with the space station, and they run into it really hard or whatever. Yeah. And there's just a line delivery of like, he turns the corner, he starts running, and he's like, what the fuck are they doing?
I know.
His anger is so blue collar worker of like somebody just fucked something else up in the factory and you're mad and you have to go investigate it. It's just, I don't know.
What the fuck are they doing? Yeah.
What the fuck are those idiots doing? It's just
goddamn
so,
morons.
Like,
GDIs.
Yeah, it's so visceral and real. And I just I felt that because I've definitely said it myself in other places of work.
Yeah. I like I said, I like the performances, quality cast. Like I said, a little predictable at times, but the ending threw me for a nice little loop. So,
yeah.
So
it's a A-OK horror movie in space.
If you had to rank these movies, quick little, before we wrap up, quick little exercise. If you had to rank these movies from, let's say, worst to best, how would you rank them?
I mean, it's a skewed scale of what worst and best is. Like, Life is obviously the best made film. But I think Galaxy of Terror is far more entertaining. Like it has just more going on with it, like even all the crazy bits, and even for like the indecipherable backstories, because then you get little pieces that you can make up on your own. There's no indecipherable backstories to Life. It's a guy in a wheelchair, a guy with a kid, a guy who was an army medic. It's not fantastical in that way. They're just people from Earth. So I think you can start making up like Sid Haig's religion and the race of psychics and what is this game? How long has this game been played? Like there's a whole bunch of things you can fill in on your own and write fucking pulp novels by yourself if you want to in Galaxy of Terror. So I put Galaxy of Terror at the top.
Okay.
But then I follow it with Life. Life is just a well-made film. Like there's nothing particularly wrong with it, so it goes next. I don't know. Can I just put the other two at the same bottom?
Sure.
Like Dead Space has no story or characters, and Apollo 18 is fucking boring and stupid. So,
I mean, we're kind of on the same page. I put Life above Galaxy of Terror because it's just a much, much better movie. Galaxy of Terror is charming and schlocky and silly, which I love.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to, like, those movies could not be more different. Galaxy of Terror versus Life, right? But I think overall, I probably would put Life slightly ahead of it, just because, I mean, the quality of the performances, like, there's just a lot of dumb and frankly some boring shit in Galaxy of Terror too.
Sure.
But so I would put Life, then Galaxy of Terror, and then I'm definitely putting up. I know you guys seem to hate Apollo 18. I absolutely liked it more than Dead Space. I thought Dead Space was fucking dog shit, and I really liked Apollo 18. Is it a masterpiece? Am I going to go watch it 5 more times? No, but it kept my interest. I thought it was entertaining. I liked how it looked for the most part. I felt for the characters a little bit, so I put that at 3 and Dead Space at 4. But
yeah, you also have to remember, I hate found footage films.
You do,
so,
and I generally like them. So
yeah, I like them. I like them when they're short format, like in VHS, because then they don't have the time to waste your time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like the reasons why I don't like Blair Witch and Apollo 18 is just because there's so much nothing happening a lot of the time.
Yeah. Sure.
The VHS series doesn't waste your time like that. Or Late Night with the Devil, even though overall the movie isn't that amazing, I just like the fact that it just breaks out of the found footage to be weird. It's like, yeah, fine. I don't care. Like, I know that breaks it for a lot of people, but that's the least of its problems.
Yeah. I mean, it's Late Night with the Devil. I definitely prefer to Apollo 18. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anyway, all right, boys and ghouls. Hey, listen, it's up to yins to go out on the social media. So later this week, usually midweek, we will put up a poll in our story on the Instagrams, and we'll put up a poll in our Twitter/X feed, and y'all can vote to see whose tag team should reign supreme for the month of May. Should it be Steve with Dead Space Downfall and Galaxy of Terror, or should it be your boy bringing up that son of a bitch in three-peat with Apollo 18 and Life? You decide, right? You could figure this out for us. Anything else, Steve? Obviously, we'll come back around when we have our punishment episode next week, and we'll announce who won, or most likely we'll if you give a shit and are following on the social medias, you'll see that. But anything else we gotta mention here?
Jump on the Patreon. If you sign up for the Patreon, you get an extra vote in both this and next month's whatever next month's topic's going to be when we do that episode next week. So
that's
you get
true.
extra votes on the Patreon as part of what you get when you sign up.
And if you've got any shitty Christian propaganda, horror, thriller, sci-fi types of movies, send them my way, because I'm collecting them on a list, on a nasty, sexy little list that I'm going to unleash on Steve here starting later this month. So I have like 3 or 4 that I'm thinking about for the first episode. I've only watched one of them, but I've read about a couple of the other ones. And I'm going to get through these, and then I'm going to pick a doozy for the beginning. And we're going to get deep into that shit. We can go deep in that sumbitch. All right. Okay. Thanks for tuning in, boils and ghouls. Check us out next week for a punishment episode and learn who took down this motherfucking championship strap for the month on next week's mini-sode. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm going to the Galaxy of Terror.
No, you're not. Bye.